rivalry. It's described as competition for the same objective. The Mets and Nationals know it all too well. Washington saw that objective slip away in 2015 as the Mets surged to the National League pennant.
Murphy has now homered in 6 straight postseason games.
But old friends turn into new enemies quickly. Thor, he outdueled Mad Max in Game 1.
Swing and a miss and a slider in the third. Strike 3. Strikeout number 10 for Noah Syndergaard.
But walking Bryce had its consequences in Game 2. Game 3 is tonight. Harvey, Strasburg, Harper, Cespedes. Buckle up. We have it all coming your way next with all of our enhanced coverage on MLB Plus. "62 degrees in the city. It's a gorgeous night. It's a gorgeous night in Queens, too. Take a ride on the 7 train to Citi Field, where tonight on MLB Plus, presented by Amazon Web Services, inside this pretty ballpark, it's the New York Mets hosting their rivals, the Washington Nationals. We will have our StatCast coverage right here on MLB Plus. And from our MLB.com studios, hi there, folks. Glad to have you with us. We trust you've had a great week. My name is Darren Sutton. On the far end, stats analyst for MLB.com, Mike Petriello. Sitting next to me, Will Leach, senior writer for Sports on Earth. And we're really excited. When we got these assignments, we were excited. But then we saw the pitching matchup for this one. It's talent, it's youth, it's big arms. It's thrilling to see when you talk about Matt Harvey and Steven Strasburg both towing the rubber tonight. Certainly the rivalry is fun. Harvey with an ERA nearly 5 this year. Strasburg, long-term deal in hand, a sub-3 ERA. And Mike, let's talk about Strasburg, because there's a pitch you want to focus on, a pitch that Mr. Strasburg says he might or might not throw. What is that pitch?
It's a slider. I say it's a slider. He does not say it's a slider. We actually asked him about it, and he said, I haven't done anything different. But we have data, and that's what makes it so much fun. We can look at the data, and we did. If you look at the spin rate versus the miles per hour, there is clearly a 4th pitch that's doing something different, and it looks for all the world like it's a slider. He can call it whatever he wants, but it's a slider, and that's really dangerous for other teams, because he was really a 3-pitch guy, and he's been elite, and I think a little bit underrated. And now he's got this 4th pitch, and it's not that it's suddenly his best pitch or most dangerous weapon, but it's a good pitch, and now you've got a 4th pitch that hitters have to look out for, so really interested to see how he's going to use that against the Mets tonight.
All right, so Will, you're not going to be quite as accusatory and talk about a guy hiding a secret pitch, but there is a situation, and for us old-fashioned stats folks at times that see the game with regard to batting average, the batting average against Matt Harvey with runners on base is dramatically higher. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it is, but I think it's been the source of his problems. But otherwise, I think it's a lot of statistical noise, to be honest. It is higher up. It's a small sample size. His exit velocity is actually a little higher with nobody on.
Interesting.
So he's talked about how he's worried pitching out of the stretch. You wonder if that's in his head a little bit. A lot of these things are just where the ball's falling in a lot of ways. I think that his velocity is down a little bit, but his strikeout, but not very much, and his strikeouts are down a little. I think he's going to be fine once this all evens out.
Those numbers quickly, again, traditional batting average with no one on 271, runners on 356, runners in scoring position 370. Those are the numbers for Harvey. We've got it covered, by the way, because we're in New York, Citi Field right around the corner. We sent the entire crew out there. Fernando Perez, Columbia grad, former member of the Rays, will cover the Mets. Jamal Collier is out there. He's MLB.com, and he will cover the Nats. And excited to have Anthony DeComo all over the ballpark. He'll be roaming the stands with good conversation. And then we want you to get involved. Ashley Chavez is our kind of changing her title this week. She's Senior Vice President of Social Media and Interaction. And so get involved with her. Get involved. Hashtag MLB Plus. But even if you're talking about the game, we'll come find you. We want these two guys to be engaged, but put some good questions out there. So that is the scene here. We want to introduce you to this kind of show tonight and also explain to you just what is StatCast.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with two distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
And Ben Revere will start things for the Washington Nationals. Jason Worth and then Bryce Harper. We will introduce you to the entire starting lineup. The three of us here, glad to have you with us. Those at the ballpark as well, as we are underway with strike one as he pours it right down the middle. Harvey making his 9th start of the year. And against left-handed hitters, one right out of the gate. An OPS of nearly 900, so lefties have been very comfortable against Matt Harvey. 1-1 the count on Ben Revere, who is having a woeful season. He has battled some injuries, and oblique cost him some time, but he's having a hard time getting to the 100 mark, let alone the Mendoza line. A dying line drive will start to introduce you to both of these teams this inning. When you take a look at Matt Harvey and how he does what he does this year, obviously his slider is important in comparison to maybe Steven Strasburg throwing one. That's the breakdown of the stuff.
Yeah, we thought his slider was going to be such a big deal last year. He said last year, it took me half the season to feel like I've gotten it back after my injury, and he started throwing it more down the stretch, and he was destroying guys with it. Really hasn't been there this year, and I think, this kind of goes back to a whole lot of the stuff we're going to talk about Matt Harvey. His stuff is still pretty good. I think people forget that last year he set the record for most innings immediately after a Tommy John surgery. I mean, he pitched well into October. I don't think it's that surprising that his command, his control is a little bit off this year because he's still throwing hard. He's still throwing at 95 miles an hour. He's down a little bit, not so much that I'd be concerned.
Peek around the frame, you will see definitions of StatCast, a glossary we'll follow along with. You will see spin rate of pitches like that if they dive down and away. You'll see exit velocity off the bat if it's a ball that's put in play. You can track it all around the frame, and we'll watch along with you. And we see Jason Worth hitting .222. He's got 3 walks and 3 hits in this series, though. This game 3 of the series. So that breaking ball misses away. Worth hitting below 200 this year against right-handed pitching. And we're talking about a Jason Worth that is now a 36-year-old Jason Worth.
The Jason Worth, the first year of his deal was okay, but the second year and the third year, he's actually a star. He started making that $126 million contract actually look like it might be worthwhile. And then if you look at the last 2 seasons, .299 on base percentage, 18 home runs over the last 2 seasons. Before that, he was 50% above league average over the previous 2 years, almost a 400 on base percentage, a lot of power, a lot of injuries in this guy's career. He's not young anymore. You wonder, we're now into the 2nd season of struggles, is he going to get it back?
Yeah, but remember, when he signed this deal, the question was, wait, he's signing with the Nationals? They're terrible. Why are they spending all this money to get Jason Worth? And here, it looks like he might have known what he was doing.
Great shot of where Worth is standing in the back of the batter's box.
He took the words right out of my mouth, Darren. That's exactly what I was going to say. That back foot is almost entirely out of the batter's box.
Always baiting that catcher's interference.
He's no Jacoby Ellsbury. As we've talked about, Jacoby Ellsbury has like half of the catcher's interference in all of baseball just by himself.
He'll do that on occasion still. 291 on base will go up close to 300 as we take a look at the starting lineup and exit velocity with regard to Bryce Harper. Ryan Zimmerman's hitting the ball very hard as well. And you could see Wilson Ramos. We'll talk about the surprising year. But Bryce Harper, as he walks to home plate, we focus on him in that starting lineup because we focus on Bryce Harper against Matt Harvey.
0 for 20. There are 10 pitchers that Harper has faced more than 20 times. Obviously, this is the only one he's hitless again. He's mostly over 345 against all of them. So I feel like when he eventually hits one, I feel like it's going to go like 550 feet. He's got a lot of pent-up frustration against Matt Harvey.
Possibly in the next 90 seconds. Well, I think it'd be interesting to see right here, how much does Harper get to hit? Right? We've talked about this a lot. He has been walked more than pretty much anybody since Barry Bonds. I think he had 3 walks last night. Teams just are not interested in pitching to him. But I feel like with Matt Harvey and men on base, I mean, this is kind of the opportunity. You know, you've got to go after him right now.
They did go after him. Into that corner, ranging and making the play out there, Curtis Granderson, and a giant roar. You know, funny numbers, and you're talking about it, Will. In his last 4 games now, including tonight, last 4+, he's got no hits. He's got 8 walks. So coming into tonight in his last 4 games, he had a 0 batting average and a .444 on base percentage.
Listen, walks as good of a hit as a hit. I don't think there's any question that people saw what he did in the first month, and they're treating him. We'll get into this a little later, but they're treating him like Barry Bonds.
0 for 21 now.
0 for 21. So now he'll go 540 feet.
Yeah.
550. He's even more pent up. Is he more coiled?
You have a chance on a foul ball. We'll introduce you to the Mets defense and how they work, and specifically how they work deeper in the outfield. And then there's the story of Daniel Murphy. And Murphy with his hovering around 400 batting average all year long. By the way, quickly, the defense.
Yeah, if you look at the defense, you've got those 3 outfielders there. This is not necessarily the best defensive outfield in baseball, and that's, I guess, probably a polite way to put it. Cespedes is stretched in center field. It looks like Granderson's lost a step. You'd really like to see Lagares out there in center, who made that really incredible over-the-shoulder catch last night. So I think as we're going to get into in a little bit, that outfield defense has actually hurt Matt Harvey a lot, and I think that's one of the problems that's really befallen him this year.
They need the DH. Just to get Lagares out there.
That's exactly
He would
right.
solve a lot of problems out there if you're out there regularly.
Heroic last year, Mets 13th round pick in 2006. Murphy in that Nationals uniform now, and just an incredible way to start the year.
So Murphy, as you say, off to a great start, but it's actually gone back further than that. If you look at over the last calendar year, and this doesn't even count the playoffs, when he was insane in the playoffs, over the last calendar year, 137 weighted runs created plus, which means 37% better than average. That's better than Anthony Rizzo. That's better than Robinson Cano. That's better than Buster Posey. From Daniel Murphy, of all people, you know, who's what, 31 years old right now? It's just a really, really unusual to see a guy that far along in his career all of a sudden become basically a different player.
And he's going to have the opportunity to get a lot of pitches to hit if they're going to keep walking Harper right in front of him.
That's right, and I would go out on a limb here and say that 3-year, $38 million contract looks pretty good right now.
T-Mobile greater coverage cam showing us the lead of Jason Worth from first base. And we'll keep an eye, obviously, with regard to StatCast, the distance and the lead for a runner off first as we hang with you down the right field line and partner with T-Mobile as part of our StatCast tonight.
So we just saw Murphy foul off the pitch there, and that kind of goes into what the Daniel Murphy experience is all about. If you look at from last year to this year, he's the second hardest guy to miss contact on. He's got the second highest contact percentage. Is a much better way of actually saying that with words. Behind only Michael Brantley. He's got a 91% contact rate, which is phenomenal.
Was that always the case, or is that part of the high?
That has been a big change for him.
Yeah.
Well, he hung back on a breaking ball very nicely, and he drives it into right center field toward the wall, and it's gone. He stayed back nicely on that breaking ball, and oh, it looks like he's still at home. He crushed it, and Washington leads it 2-0.
Been a lot of discussion about how Mets fans would greet Daniel Murphy, Murphy coming back. I don't think they're really that happy to see him right now.
No, and that was kind of peak Daniel Murphy right there. That's his 68th career home run. Only 6 of them have been to the left of center field. He pulls home runs, and that's exactly what he did there. He's been hitting a lot more fly balls the last couple years. He's not hitting it on the ground anymore. He's pulling it, and he's making solid contact. He's really a changed player. This is no longer a small sample size. This is the real deal. It is time to buy into him completely.
And he was ready for Harvey's secondary pitch there. I mean, the hitter who's not locked in leaks out front. The hitter who's not locked in, that weight doesn't stay back, and it's a lazy fly ball.
Yeah, 103 miles an hour on that, which is good, but not great.
You beat me to it. I was trying to look it up.
Sorry. I have a team of data experts
Can't
here.
be
I know,
Mike,
I was
man.
trying.
But he got it at such the perfect launch angle, so 418 feet, right, to right center, and that's a big ballpark. I mean, that is a real shot.
Ryan Zimmerman has 2 hits and a walk. He's also been hit by a pitch in this series. He has doubled in this series as well, Ryan Zimmerman, at 240, on base 307, slugging below 400 at 396.
Worth noting too that that is another on-base trouble for Matt Harvey.
Interesting route by Cespedes here. I thought maybe he could get the ball if he kept turning. But you're right. This is not going to help Matt Harvey's men on base stats. And we already said they were kind of rough. They are now more rough. And I agree with you that it's kind of a small sample and maybe it's just a blip. But at some point, he's got to actually not allow runs on the scoreboard.
But it's still, it's tied into the defense. And it's tied, to me, the telling stat in this is that the exit velocity, when there's nobody on, is actually higher than it is when people are on. Like this is, eventually that is going to even out. But not tonight, apparently.
Not tonight.
Harvey's batting average for balls in play against this year, 379, which at some point you consider this early in the year and the smaller sample size. That's high. I mean,
it is over 100 points more than it was last year.
Right.
And so I'm willing to believe that some of that is just fatigue. He's not hitting his spots. His pitches aren't quite as crisp. I'm sure it's partially that. But I also think it's his defense because, last year he had Olivares in center field for a lot, and now they've got Cespedes. And, even Conforto is not the world's best defensive outfielder. So we pulled some numbers, okay? Batted balls that went at least 200 feet that were not home runs or ground balls. So conceivably balls that should possibly be caught by the outfield. Last year he had a 313 batting average against on those. This year, 517. And, is that partially him? Sure, but it cannot be all him.
Slider puts away Ryan Zimmerman. It was a very good one. He got Revere, he got Harper, but he didn't get Jason Worth, and he didn't get Daniel Murphy. And for Murphy, you look back to how much fun it was last year in that spectacular postseason and how incredible he was, and a way to get things going back home with the home run. Again, for me, just really comfortable with how things are going. And Darren and Will and Mike taking a look at how things are going. The StatCast with regard to our coverage, our replay of what we saw with regard to that home run. By the way, our StatCast replays are powered by Amazon Web Services. Here it is.
Yeah, that pitch, 80 miles an hour, and it's going to be kind of a hanging curveball. Like, that pitch did not get down enough. You put that in the dirt, and I think that's okay. That pitch is right in the middle, and you got a guy like Murphy who's crushing everything. No doubt about that. He put that right out.
And that's a pitch that's not because of a decreased velocity on his fastball. It's just a bad pitch. It's just a bad pitch.
We've been saying all year, 25 to 30 degrees is roughly the sweet spot. In there has been about 75% of all home runs come within that launch angle. And you put that over 100 miles an hour, that's going to go out of most parks in baseball. So he did that perfectly.
He did, but you know how I roll on that one too, the old ball player in me. You still have to be on balance, you still have to be hot, you still have to be seeing the baseball well. It might not have been a great pitch.
Yeah.
It looks easy in the studio to say that, but you still have to turn it around, and he crushed that one. So it's good for him to see from Murphy. And it's going to be interesting to watch Strasburg, and I'd be excited to track the pitch you're talking about with regard to that slider.
Slider.
Could it be cutter? No?
Well, sliders and cutters, yeah, they are
I understand.
It could be. Like I said, what you call it doesn't really matter so much. It's just a pitch that is doing something differently than his other three pitches. So, the naming, it's semantics. It looks to me like it's a slider. If you want to call it a cutter, I'm fine with that. It's not his fastball or his change or his curveball.
Well, it's worth noting, too, that it's not so much he's not saying just I don't throw a slider. It's I'm doing the same thing I did last year, which is clearly evidence
and he has
not
tried.
true.
Like every year he tries a slider and he lasts for about a dozen pitches and gives it up. This year he seems to be really sticking with it. And like I said, it's not suddenly his best new pitch in the world, but it's something else that's good enough that hitters have to think about. And
he can show it.
Yeah, and this is a guy who was already very, very successful with three pitches. Now he's got this fourth pitch. It's almost unfair. And kind of like I said, you can see here he's throwing the slider last year 1%, this year 14%. I mean, that's not a little bit of a difference.
That looks like the definition of something different.
Yes, that is something. And like I said, you don't like the word slider, that's fine.
Right.
Call it whatever you want, but it's something. And, if you look at Strasburg, since coming off the disabled list last summer, 121 innings, 157 strikeouts, 2.37 ERA, I think he's actually underrated somehow. Because people thought, well, he's number one overall pick. He should instantly be like 10 Clayton Kershaws, which was never fair. And, there was the whole thing about he got shut down and he got hurt. I've always thought that he's really been one breakout season away from getting the respect that I always thought he deserves. And so far, this is that season.
Slider grabs the outside corner because Curtis Granderson always takes that first pitch to get things comfortable. And then a breaking ball just up and away, 1-1 the count. And a good fastball follows it. Our first three pitches of the game, they're all three different pitches to start the ball game. Curtis Granderson hitting just 205 with an on-base below 300. With 16 walks this year, he struck out 39 times.
Yeah, if he makes contact here, watch where it goes, because his big problem this year has been ground ball rate has been up a lot. Last year he had about a 30% ground ball rate. This year, 42% ground ball rate. It's not exactly what you want from a guy who's getting up there in age, doesn't seem to have the same speed he wants to. He used to steal quite a bit of bases. I don't think he has any this year, or maybe just one, and so he needs to get that ball in the air.
I mean, he's had such a nice resurgence with the Mets that you forget that he actually is a little old.
He is. He's been around for a long time.
Right.
And I think, Mets fans have never really loved him as much as they should, because they think of the guy who hit 41 homers with the Yankees, who hit 43 homers with the Yankees. That was before he had some hand injuries. That was when he still had that short porch in right field. He's just not that guy, but he's overall been a pretty valuable player, although he's off to kind of a rough start this year.
MVP votes in 2007 and 2011, and yes, Mets fans in 2015 MVP votes for that man, and Curtis Granderson. 35 years old, and a fastball elevated, blown by him. He is leadoff man in the lineup, number 2 in the lineup, David Wright, as you take a look at exit velocity on down for all hitters. And you see as Drupal Carrera, contact guys kind of change things. But we focused on David Wright, and we do so for a reason.
David Wright is having kind of the weirdest season, I think. You can see he's really hitting the ball hard, 93.8, and that's good. That's up for him from 89.5 last year. But he's not having the same production because he's making contact a lot less. He's striking out way more. He's walking way more. He's the king of what we've termed 2 true outcomes here. He's the only guy in baseball who's got a walk rate plus a strikeout rate over 50% of his times at bat. So he's only swinging at the exact pitches he wants to swing at. But he's just, it's not really working out for him. And I kind of wonder, we all know his back is still going to be an issue. Does that mean he's not reaching for pitches he can no longer get to? He's just waiting for his pitch and trying to rip it as hard as he can.
I mean, his starts these days are game time decisions almost. Like every time, you don't know whether he's going to start until he gets to the park and see how he feels. He's gotten to that age, and that contract's still going for a long time.
Yeah, and you knew it was bad because the other night he got scratched after Lucas Duda had already got scratched. They rarely had enough infielders to fill it out, and he still wasn't able to go.
Has had good command of the outside corner to that part of the zone, reaching out and getting it, which means he'll be effective against lefties getting out there like he was with Granderson.
Yeah, I want to give you an incredible stat here on David Wright. We have a stat called, you can call it chase rate, outside contact rate, right? The amount of times you swing outside the strike zone and you make contact. You don't really want to do that very often. His rate has always been 65%. That's his career rate every year. Been pretty close to 65%. This year, 34%, which is an enormous drop. It's almost by half. And you might think, okay, that's good. He's making contact with fewer of these pitches outside the zone, and he's not putting lower quality balls in play. But the problem is he's just missing. He's striking out a lot because he's not even making contact with these balls he could once get to. And I have to think that's related to the back. I have to.
It feels like a guy that's concentrating solely on plate discipline because physically
he's limited. He's limited.
33 years old, and a fastball that was just too much for him once again, blown right by him. StatCast is powered by Amazon Web Services. We take you back in a StatCast replay to the strikeout of Curtis Granderson.
That's good extension, right? It's almost a foot better than Major League average, and he already throws 97 miles an hour to the hand. I gotta say the high fastball, when done properly, is probably my favorite pitch in baseball. It's so underutilized. I think a lot of pitchers are scared to do it because they know if they miss, it's going to go about 500 feet. You always hear, oh, pitch it down, get ground balls. Hitters got so used to that if you can put the high fastball up there, you will get really good results.
It's almost, and when one is thrown perfect like that, it's almost psychologically violent. Like it just feels
right.
like a hitter's just like you. I have defeated you, and you will know.
You walk back with your head down, sir.
And think about what you've done.
Conforto squared up Strasburg quite a bit last year with that spin rate. Right under his hands. That, I think, is the pitch you're talking about. If it's not a slider, it's a cutter. You can call it whatever you want. But that, a good 6 inches, maybe 5 inches, but a good tight break to it. There you see the spin rate and the velocity of it.
And that's an effective pitch. And it's not something he needs to use all the time. But if you see it, 12, 15 times a game, the batter has to respect that. And that's just another thing to worry about against the guy who can already blow you away or drop that hammer curveball.
That perceived rising fastball there a moment ago to Conforto. 6 home runs this year. Slugging .523. And that'll do it. My goodness.
Strasburg looked okay that inning.
I think he'll do okay.
He blew him away. You can see the changeup, a little bit of a different look. I think he maybe only threw 1 or 2 of those in the first inning. Strasburg dominating, enjoying this MLB Plus. By the way, both these teams, here is their combined best of StatCast.
He's never hit a grand slam. How about a grand slam for 100? The pitch. Swinging a long drive. Right field. Way back. It is number 100. And it is a grand slam for Bryce Harper.
I mean, it's like you're watching a movie. Watch this guy play every day. I mean, okay, your 100th career home run's a grand slam, upper deck. I mean, that's curtain call. If he's ever had a curtain call, it's right now.
Listen to this crowd.
Malone looking for his first hit of the year.
He drives one. Deep left field. Back goes Upton. Back near the wall. It's out of here. Bartolo has done it. The impossible has happened. His first career home run. This is one of the great moments in the history of baseball. Bartolo Colon has gone deep. His 226th career at bat. You knew if he ever made contact in just the right way, he was strong enough to do it.
2-2. And he swings and flies one to deep center field. Back goes Peterson near the wall. It's out of here! Noah Syndergaard with his second home run of the night. A 3-run shot.
Syndergaard swings away and launches a 3-run homer, and the Mets are leading 4-2.
Thank goodness we had her fonted the old-fashioned way because her microphone was out. But we'll get back to Ashley. That's great. That was an old-school font right there.
She came pre-labeled, so that helped
kind
out.
of a silent movie type thing. Unfortunately, we did have a silent movie, so we'll get that fixed. And we know you're already interacting. That's great stuff. By the way, we want to welcome you back to MLB Plus, presented by T-Mobile, as Harvey strides the rubber. Matt dealing with Rendon. Ramos, want to get into him, and Danny Espinosa. But first, Anthony Rendon, a 237 on the year, on base of 328, and slugging just 321.
Really disappointing season for Rendon, because I think a lot of people, when they thought Nationals would bounce back this year, it was because Rendon's going to be better. He had an amazing 2014. He was a 6-win player. He had a 130 weighted runs created plus. The last 2 seasons since, he's been hurt last year, he's been unsuccessful this year. I'm really surprised that he has not bounced back.
That was the thing with him and Desmond, were the 2 guys that they thought were going to bust through last year. I think there was more faith for him. And Desmond, obviously going to Texas, but Rendon they need him to step up a little bit. They can't really count on Murphy to quite be that all year.
So you've had your eyes, Mike, follow me there, your eyes on Wilson Ramos and the spectacular years he is having. Why is that happening?
Yeah, if you look at Wilson Ramos, he has been the best hitting catcher in baseball this year, the best. And if you look at Wilson Ramos over the last few years, he's arguably been the worst hitting catcher in baseball. Him or Mike Zunino. It's been a really rough couple years for Wilson Ramos. Now, I don't want to put too much emphasis on one story, but he did have laser eye surgery this offseason, and he said it immediately.
So I did that well. I set him up like
super clever. I like that. And he says he could see the ball better. He says he can see the spin better. And I can say I've actually also had laser eye surgery, and everything about it is true. And I had it like 12 years ago. I'm sure he's had a probably better, higher quality than I did. And if he says he can see it better, I absolutely believe it. And the numbers clearly bear it out. He's literally the best hitting catcher in baseball, above Jonathan Lucroy and Yadi Molina. It's an enormous turnaround for him.
Good changeup, dives down and away at the plate. Thought he was swinging at a fastball. Ramos, just to say what Mike's talking about, 343, 378, 524 triple slash. 1 of 5 with a pair of RBIs. He's hitting 4 of his last 5 games.
I remember when Greg Maddux got his LASIK surgery, everybody was so nervous. They thought, it was still so kind of new when Maddux got it. They're like, he's going to lose his eye, and he didn't.
Soft one, followed by a good hard diving fastball down and in. Some good life on that one. You see the extension, 5.6. So we see that last pitch, 5.6. The perceived velocity, 1.4 miles an hour below where it comes out of the hand. Just remind us again what that means.
Yeah, if you look at extension, it basically says how far off the mound did the pitcher release the ball. Nobody actually throws 60 foot 6 inches. You can say, oh, I'm going to throw it 53 feet if that's how far you get off the mound. And so it goes to say how fast does the pitch look to the hitter. And you can see that it actually is a little lower than it came in out of his hand because he's not getting very good extension.
Danny Espinosa takes one with him to the right side.
That's perfect.
Yeah. It is perfect, so he'll help his batting average in front of the pitcher. He reaches. So you could argue what goes on there. You do clear the pitcher.
Well, I always like the idea of bunting for a hit. Sacrifice bunts forget about it. But bunting for a hit, if you can do it, I think that makes sense, especially because Espinosa has gotten off to a really brutal start to the season. In fact, I wonder if he's in his last 2 weeks or so of being the national shortstop, because Trey Turner, top prospect, is really lighting it up in AAA.
Bunting against the not so much bunting against the shift as bunting into the shift.
Right. You don't see that one too often.
I guess point well made too as you talk about it, because 0 for 7, 5 strikeouts in this series alone.
Yeah, he's really. I mean, I would say he's gotten off to a bad start, but to be totally honest, he's never really been much of a hitter. He's a pretty good shortstop, so he's got that going for him. But he's got to do what he can to hang on to his job.
He's going to have a pretty hot couple of weeks to hang on to that job.
Red hot.
So I have this simple way of judging pitchers. All the games I've done in the big leagues, you take your intellect, both of you guys, and tell me if there's anything to it. It's very simple. If a pitcher doesn't strike out a bunch, then at least he has a chance of helping you. And if it's less than half the time, not the elite athletic pitchers, but Strasburg struck out 4 times in 19 at-bats. At least he's going to do that, put it in play. Is there anything to that? You guys going to shoot that down, or are you going to be okay with it?
I'd buy it.
It's completely unscientific.
And he did clear, like you said, Espinosa cleared it there, so now you're not going to have the pitcher leading off next inning. That's worthwhile.
I was a little bit critical of Danny there, wasn't I?
Yeah, to not make the last out.
Yeah, I didn't really. That's important to be like that. I kind of accused him of just bunting in a unique situation. I didn't mean to be like that, folks. By the way, Ashley is ready to go. Ashley, social media, Senior Vice President, we are ready for you. What are folks saying? Will we hear you?
Well, that's what I want to see. First, can you hear me?
Yes.
Second, what do you think?
Senior Vice President, I like it.
I like it.
Just want to make sure everyone knows.
Saving money on graphics. Well done,
Saving
buddy.
money on graphics and also kind of bragging. I'm sorry. All right, let's get to your tweets. And make sure to join in on the conversation using hashtag MLB+, which is what I was mentioning earlier, because we want to hear from you and we want to answer some of your questions and just chat, just have fun. So the first one is from Rob F. Sportstude, hope I said that correctly. At MLB Rubber Game, Mets versus Nationals with aces Strasburg and Harvey. It's time for the Dark Knight to rise and be the king of Gotham. He still can do it. I have faith. Next, from our very own Michael Clare, he says, Ryan Zimmerman's exit velo is the highest on the Nationals. Hashtag MLB+, you're blowing my mind. Thanks, Michael. And next we have our very own Anthony DiComo. He says Daniel Murphy with an emphatic high five after he and Jason Worth score. Murphy homers off Matt Harvey. Nats 2, Mets 0. We'll see how this game goes. I'm very excited. I'm very excited for this pitching matchup.
I'm excited for the matchup. I'm hoping people interact with you and give these guys some great talking points.
Let's talk. Let's chat. All
right. By the way, we had the tweet there. We're talking about the home runs. Let's do exactly what we talked about. Let's get you interactive. As a matter of fact, we'll leave this studio. Anthony DiComo is standing by, and he's been roaming all around the ballpark. Spectacular way to start things with regard to that home run, laying back and leaning on that breaking ball. Anthony, thanks for hanging on with us tonight. We appreciate it. Your thoughts on Mr. Murphy and what's the vibe about that home run?
Not happy is how I would put it. It's funny because Daniel Murphy came here obviously on Tuesday, and for his first game back at Citi Field, first game with the Nationals playing here, and he was given a very polite reaction. People were clearly happy with what Murphy had given this franchise, what he meant to this franchise, particularly last October. And Terry Collins said the next day, he goes, that was all well and good, but we got to get him out now. And he's just another player now. And despite the fact that we'll always in the clubhouse all be friends with him, he's just another player. And I think you see that a little bit from the crowd tonight, too. There are no more cheers for Daniel Murphy. He's just another National now. And that home run that he hit was not a fun time for the people out here in the outfield. It went a long way right there in the bullpen area between the fence, the new fence, and the old Citi Field fence. And you can just see on people's faces going out, not pleased is the way I would put it.
Hey, Anthony, it's Mike. I think you could easily see Mets fans having a panic attack by how great Daniel Murphy has played for the Nationals, but it's really important that Neil Walker has come in and gotten off to a really great start. Do you think that that's kind of helping the fans get over it a little bit, or are they still kind of pining for Murphy?
Oh, I think it's definitely helped. I think it's helped. And the way in which Walker's done it, because really, if you look at what Neil Walker's done, all of his production came in April. He's done pretty much nothing since offensively. And imagine if it had been reversed. Imagine if Neil Walker had started out in a 2-for-25 slump, which is around what he's in now, and only got hot after that. And meanwhile, Daniel Murphy's down there in Washington batting 400, flirting with that number for the entire season. People would be going bonkers. How could you let Daniel Murphy go and sign this guy? He's a bum and blah, 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 blah. So the Mets are very lucky, I think, in the way in which Neil Walker went on his early season power binge, because they can now stomach the fact that Neil Walker has come back down to earth a little bit and is a little bit more of a normal hitter, more in line overall with what we've seen from him in his career.
MLB.com Mets reporter Anthony DiComo joining us. We're glad you're joining us as we welcome you back to MLB Plus, presented by T-Mobile. Cespedes with 13 home runs this year, on base of 368, slugging close to 670. The guys here, we're talking about David Wright. He struck out back in the first inning. The metrics tell us that his exit velocity, he's hitting the ball pretty hard, but it's just been a really tough start for him. He's had a woeful run the last couple of weeks, hitting below 100. What are your thoughts? What have you seen? What are his leaders saying about David Wright?
Well, he's chasing too many balls out of the strike zone. That's, I think, a huge reason why he's striking out. And right now, you have to hope if you're the Mets that this is rock bottom for the slump for David Wright, because he's the past now just for 10 days he's been striking out more than 50% of the time. You're not going to be a very productive player if that's happening. Now, already you're hearing fans, people want to drop him in the lineup, or maybe even worse than that, people want to take him out of the lineup altogether. That's not going to happen anytime soon. In some part because the Mets don't really have great alternatives right now. Eric Campbell's on the roster, Matt Reynolds is on the roster, Wilmer Flores is on the disabled list, but none of those players have really distinguished themselves and shown that they deserve everyday playing time. But for David Wright, I mean, we have to take a step back and realize this is David Wright, and he means everything to this franchise. It would mean so much for them for him to get going. Not even taking into account the baseball sense that he's under contract through 2020. So I think everyone in the clubhouse is rooting for David Wright to bust out of this. And for the Mets, I think it's a little bit of a, not necessarily confusion, but a feeling out over how much of this is physical, related to his back, how much of this is the guy who's 33 years old, sort of learning to play in that decline phase of a player's career, and how much is just a slump. I think probably there's some aspects of all of it in there, and the Mets are certainly hopeful that more of this is just a slump than anything else, because this isn't who David Wright is, this isn't who David Wright has been, and it's just not a great situation right now for him or the Mets.
T-Mobile providing us with greater coverage via our roving reporter, Anthony DiComo. Anthony, thank you. We'll talk with you in a bit.
Okay, you got it.
Anthony helping us out at the ballpark. Meantime, Yoenis Cespedes reached in. He took what looked like a hovercraft slider.
It sure did look like a slider, and I think it's important to note, like, this is not the best pitch in baseball. It's a good pitch, and that means some guys are going to hit it sometimes.
The at-bat continues. Duda saying he foul tipped. It looked like it went into the catcher's mitt. And they will continue the conversation.
We should note, sorry, I was going to say, in the first inning, Steven Strasburg threw his hardest pitch of the year at 98.2, and also his third hardest pitch of the year. So he's really bringing it tonight. He actually threw a 91.2 mile an hour changeup, which seems unfair to me.
That kind of is unfair. Terry Collins with some passion behind that discussion. The first out of the inning. Funny thing about Cespedes, so in the first inning, guys, why do you bat him fourth, but you don't pull for your guys not to come through? But in the first inning, Yoenis Cespedes is 3 of 26. That's a 115 clip. The rest of the game, he's hitting close to 370.
It's funny to think that during the trade deadline, Cespedes was, I think they thought he might be traded, but it wasn't this idea that, oh, they're getting a superstar, they're getting the consolation prize. And now to see what he's become even there was even thought that someone turned out to be the Mets would overpay him. But I think his start to this season has encouraged a lot of people that they made the right decision.
Especially when you remember they tried to get Carlos Gomez. What happened to Carlos Gomez?
He's falling apart. He's on the DL right now.
He is.
Good feeling for Neil Walker as he sees Murphy homer. Really not related at all, but he pitches in his base hit. And you guys were talking about the year Walker is having. It's his first hit in this series. I would imagine he's looking forward to getting that first hit he's on.
Yeah, Neil Walker with a 489 OPS in May. And I think Anthony hit it perfectly, right? If his 2 months had been reversed and he got off to that start, Queens would be burning down right now. But since he hit all those home runs, it helped to smooth the transition a little bit. But that's only going to last for so long.
And Murphy, Murphy moving forward the way that he has, like Walker's going to have to hit a little better than I think they even thought he was going to be able to hit.
Walker really has been one of the most oddly consistent players in baseball. If you look at it, there's only two second basemen who have had an OPS plus above 100 in each of the last 7 seasons, him and Robinson Cano. He's never been a superstar, but every single year he's been slightly above average, and there's value to that. It's funny, if you look at his last 5 seasons, his stat line and Daniel Murphy's stat line is almost exactly identical. They both have a 114 rated runs created plus. Now, obviously, Daniel Murphy doesn't look like he's the same guy he was for the beginning of that stretch, but still, it's really interesting to see the guy they let go and the guy they replaced him with.
Really good fastball with strike one to Asdrubal Cabrera.
Did you see the nifty move that Murphy made, by the way, to fake? He acted like he had the ball and faked the throw to try to get Cespedes to go back to first base.
I love that move.
Yeah.
We saw
It's Cespedes is It feels like against your old team and against Cespedes. It's probably not going to work, but that seems like the time to try.
Absolutely worth the shot.
Yeah, aforementioned. Cespedes taking the lead off of second. Runners on first and second. Asdrubal Cabrera at 280. 335 is his on base. And a 385 slug on the year. He's got a couple of hits. He's got a double in this series. Can we measure what Cabrera has meant to the Mets with regard to just dependability?
Yeah, he has. It's interesting. People look at him playing defense, and I think if he passes the eye test.
Runners were going. That passes the eye test into center field. 1 run is in for the Mets. Runners on first and third. Great contact on a hit and run there. Asdrubal Cabrera drives in a run, and the Mets bounce back. They trail it 2-1.
It's kind of a risky play as much as Strauss. He's got 4 strikeouts already. He's missed a lot of bats today. To turn that on is it's a lot different second inning than it was the first.
It was a 90-mile-an-hour changeup, by the way, that he hit. That's, it helps that it was nicely placed, but it's actually a nice bit of hitting.
In a year, it's whereas Asdrubal Cabrera's contact rate is actually down below his career average and below league average. So you're exactly right.
I mean, if he throws one of those 97 high fastballs, that's a double play.
We'll take a look at the lead for Cabrera peeking in from right field. That is our angle from the T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam all the way into that batter's box. Kevin Plawecki gets the start, as he has much of this year. 1 of 6 with a pair of strikeouts on the series. The last 11 games, he's got 11 hits. He's got a couple of walks, getting on base enough.
Citi Field is reacting with every pitch like it's a playoff game tonight. It's pretty great, isn't it? Like they are ready for tonight.
It's like it's both great and also it's mid-May.
Yeah, so, easy guys.
Right. It's a marathon.
Mets fans are not always known for perspective, but it's good. Remember the first 4 or 5 years of Citi Field, everyone talked about how beautiful the stadium was. It'd be great if there was ever actually a playoff game and something really exciting happened. And now we've seen just how electric the place can really get.
I was going to say the players can react like it's only May. Let the fans hang on everything.
Oh, it's great.
Let them hang on everything.
Beats apathy every day.
I would agree with you 100%. 0-2 the count. He's thrown sliders, by the way. He's thrown several of them. He's got a hurting by him. I think Cespedes hit one. I think Walker hit one this inning. I know you'll tell me if that's right or wrong, Mike, because you're able to dig through the pitches that contact was made. But that's the pitch you wanted to talk about coming on there, and he is throwing it.
Yeah, he's thrown 6 of them so far, but maybe not including this last one. That's the second highest pitch he's thrown so far tonight, mostly fastballs, but he's making sure the Mets know about it.
Lead distance for Walker and Cabrera. Boy, he missed a spot there. Left it right down the middle, but just laid on it. Tagging, big arm, Harper, 1 hop to the plate. Walker stayed put. Bryce Harper with that athletic catcher's arm and right. How good is his arm?
It is actually, it's above average, but not by as much as you might think. Because if you think about it, there's actually a lot of really good outfield arms in baseball right now. So it's good, but it's down a little bit from what it was last year. So it's interesting to see.
You wonder what would have happened if that turns into a play that's halfway between Revere and Harper, and how much they make sure Harper calls him off.
That would be fascinating, and I hope we see it. Because Ben Revere has, I believe, the second weakest outfield arm in baseball, and that's a big deal. I mean, if Ben Revere catches that ball, then I think that runner goes home and probably scores the run.
Matt Harvey's 2 of 10. He struck out 3 times this year. He's homered in his big league career. 132 career hitter.
And the slider, not a slider.
Yeah, whatever it is, it worked and it moved and it didn't go straight, and Matt Harvey really had no chance. I mean, it's a good pitch when he throws it right, and to think that he's just still kind of learning it. I mean, Clayton Kershaw is a great example. He got to the big leagues without a slider. He learned it messing around in the bullpen at Wrigley Field one day, and then all of a sudden it turned into the slider.
Must be nice to be Clayton Kershaw.
And a lot of pitchers, guys, will do that, but I think a pitch like the slider, it's a bigger jump. I mean, a lot of guys will add a cutter because it's easy just to change the pressure point and, you know, go a little bit on the side of the horseshoe and push out with your middle finger. That's a bit of a change to add that, especially when you're an elite pitcher watched so closely.
And you mess up a slider and you know it.
I like that he and other great pitchers are always trying to improve. He was perfectly fine with the 3 pitches he had. You know, and he's trying to add another dimension. And you know, as we can see, he's off on the best start of his career.
One and two the count, 2-1 the score. Washington leads it, and they do so on Daniel Murphy's home run, his 6th of the year. Murphy's got 3 hits on this series, and there's no chase high and out of the zone there. By the way, unofficially, Bryce Harper's hardest throw from the outfield, Mike, according to StatCast, 93.12 miles an hour this year.
That is a pretty impressive throw.
Pretty good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gone over 96 times. Over the outside corner. Our StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services. Here it is.
Now it helps that he's got some forward momentum here, right? We've talked about that a lot. That you can actually, you know, have a harder throw.
96.2. Oh my goodness, 96.2 miles an hour. By the way, Jim Duquette is with us as well as we walk you into the dugout with our T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam peeking into that third base visitor's dugout. And Duke has his conversation talking with us about Walker, Murphy, and them together in the same series.
You know, the 2 second basemen, it's really worked out for both teams. Daniel Murphy was really the main acquisition for the Nationals this winter, and thankfully they brought him over. He has picked up right where he left off from the postseason. He's shown power, and he's shown the ability to hit, which he's always had in his career. He's played pretty solid defense at second base. And if you look at that lineup, outside of Bryce Harper, Daniel Murphy has been the most valuable player for that team, while Anthony Rendon and Ryan Zimmerman get themselves back on track. So now it looks like Dusty Baker's going to use him behind Bryce Harper, give him a little bit of protection maybe. I still think teams will pitch around Bryce, but Murphy has been really, really hot. Now, the Mets picked up right where they left off with another solid second baseman, going and getting Neil Walker in the trade for Jonathan Neese. He's been better than they expected. He's going to end up with over 20 home runs. He's been an upgrade defensively to Murphy at second base, hitting down in that 5 or 6 hole in the lineup for Terry Collins. And saving the money, or basically it was a wash between Walker and John Neese, that allowed them the flexibility to go out and get Yoenis Cespedes, who's been very good for the Mets in that lineup as well. So both sides of it has worked at second base, the new guys, Walker and Murphy, for the respective teams.
Beautiful night. We were telling you, temperatures going to drop into the low 60s. There will be oppressive summer nights at every ballpark around the nation, but this, goodness, is not one of those nights. A beautiful shot of the sun saying good evening to all of us. We'll see it again tomorrow because it's even supposed to be a prettier day in the city. And in Queens, too. You guys taught me how to do that.
Golf clap over here.
You guys taught me how to do that. We roll along as, oh, how about that shot?
I feel like Harvey's probably going to be happy that the weather's getting warmer. I think that may have caused him some of his early problems this year.
I think that's true. It has been kind of a cold early spring across the Northeast, and that happens every year, but especially this year, it's been kind of chilly, so it wouldn't surprise me if that was part of the issue. And as I said, he's still throwing 95 miles an hour. He's not down to 85. That would be concerning.
Ben Revere to lead things off. This is the top of the third inning.
Ben Revere 2 for his last 36.
The top of the lineup, though.
A robust 0.94 batting average. I get that he makes a lot of contact, and he's a fast base runner. But when you look at the other guys in this lineup, it's still kind of concerning he's leading off. It feels like a very dusty Baker move, doesn't it?
I mean, he leads off because he's the fast guy.
But then you look and maybe it's hard to say who'd be a better option right now, I guess. If Rendon, if he was hitting, I'd love to see him atop the lineup, but he's not really off to a great start either.
But he's not off to this start.
No, he's not off to this start.
Rendon at the bottom is still not this.
Revere's batting average for balls in play just went up from 116 where it started the season. So another base runner and another chance with some high stress. You think about these 2 years for the New York Mets and their starting rotation and the difference with regard to wins and losses. It's the same at this point, but for both these teams, a little bit of a higher ERA and some differences that I know you've noticed too.
Yeah, this is comparing the Mets from last year to this year, and I think if you think about the way the fans are thinking about that rotation from this year to last year, they're not thinking about it in the same way at all. They're thinking, oh my God, DeGrom's exploding. Oh my God, Harvey's exploding. Okay, at least Syndergaard's there. And I do think that's part of what evens it out, because Syndergaard was not here early last season. So his increased production is sort of balancing out the lower production from the other guys. Still a very, very good rotation, and I think that graphic kind of goes to show there's not an issue really right now to worry about.
And it's worth noting that a month after that point last year, the Mets were in a lot worse place than I suspect they're going to be a month from that now.
Yeah, and that was because of their offense last year. And everybody looks at the Cespedes acquisition and said, well, that's when things changed. And obviously he played a huge role in that. Nobody's saying otherwise. But also Michael Conforto came back. Also David Wright came back. Juan Uribe joined, and they weren't hitting, John Mayberry and Darryl Siciliani 4-5 in the lineup. That made a big difference too.
Is forgotten just how much despair Mets fans were at around June last year.
The late June when they went on this road trip where they got shut out like 4 times, because you look at the lineup they had, and it was, Lucas Duda, who I like very much, was by far their best hitter, and that's not exactly the place you want to be in.
No balls and 2 strikes to count on Jason Worth. Worth walked and scored back in the first inning. He was 2 batters in front of Daniel Murphy's home run. Worth plays this season at 36 years old, originally a Baltimore first-round pick in '97 out of Illinois.
As a catcher, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir.
From Springfield.
And I've seen the picture of him when he got drafted. It looks like he's about 14 years old, and now look at him,
He looks like he was never 14.
No, he's like the next generation Johnny Damon right now.
K-rate up this year. Been a tough season in that area for him, missing more baseballs than usual.
He is aging, but we talked about this earlier, but when he signed that contract, what it meant for that franchise, and of course that famous home run that he hit in the playoffs, like they made a bobblehead out of that thing. Like he's going to be beloved in Washington, even if he declines a little bit.
They're going to get 2 very, very good seasons out of that 5-year deal. Whether that's enough of a return on investment, I don't know, but I think you're right, because they were kind of downtrodden at the time, and he was the first guy they really brought in and said, okay, you're going to be with Zimmerman, and you're going to be with Strasburg, and we're going to build around you. And sometimes it's worked out and sometimes it hasn't, but I think you're right. I think there's still hopefully enough in there where he's not going to be a star again, but he can at least be a useful player.
The thing you heard when he signed the deal was he's a complimentary player. He's not really your centerpiece guy. Well, it turns out they actually he could be complimentary players to some guys that were coming, and it was going to work out pretty well.
And the funny thing is, $126 million doesn't look that big anymore.
He chased a high fastball up in the zone. To the track it goes. Revere will have to head back. We head back to Revere's base hit. Our StatCast replay of his base hit is powered by Amazon Web Services.
That is a perfectly placed blue pit right there. I'm guessing if I were to look up the numbers of the exit velocity plus the launch angle, it might not look that impressive, but it's probably going to be like an 800 batting average, because nobody positions their fielders right there. If you could actually hit a ball there every single time, you'd be really doing well. Of course, nobody can do that, but that kind of gets.
You're going with bloop there, though, by the way?
Well, I know 92 miles an hour, but I mean,
it's not a bloop for it's
230 feet. It's.
If Harper
distance.
If Harper hits that, it's a bloop. If Revere hits it, it's a line drive.
And that's probably the hardest he can hit the ball. He was dead last year in exit velocity, Ben Revere was. So for him, that's a home run.
We've been hammering him and hammering Espinosa, and they're 2 for 2, so 2 for 3.
Bryce fly to right field back in the first inning.
He would take it. Harper would happily take a blue hit right here. 0 for 21.
I think he'd happily take a pitch to hit.
That's the number you were talking about, the matchup between these two. 24 times they've met. There have been a couple of walks in that mix, and he went after him. He beat him with it. It's interesting, too, because you think about the amount of at-bats he has had against, pitchers around the big leagues. He's still in his early 20s, but he's been around enough to face good ones.
Yeah,
and the 0-0-0 across the board, not even comparable when you think of 20 at-bats or more against other pitchers for Harper.
Yeah, he's young enough, and there are still 2 pitchers on that list that aren't currently in baseball.
That's crazy, though. That's crazy.
That is a pretty interesting thing.
My favorite part about this is the guy who's the 4th best against him is still 321.
Exactly. We should keep an eye on this kid. He's got some talent.
He might work out.
That's a rocket shot to right field.
Off the schneid.
I look forward to hearing some numbers on that when he hit it hard. Maybe it's a little bit in off the plate. He pulled his hands in. Does he want to get the baseball? I think that's what he wants. Can we get that baseball there?
There it is. First career hit against Harvey.
Looks like some boos are starting to sneak in for Murphy here a little bit.
What a compliment. Yeah, that split the plate. Good first to third. No surprise there for Revere, even as hard as it was hit.
110 miles an hour off the bat. So that is a rocket.
If Harvey threw a lot of pitches like that to Harper before, he would not be 0 for 21 coming into that at bat. That was right in the happy place.
Darren, can we go back to the Ben Revere bloop just for a second?
Sure, absolutely.
I mentioned that if I had the numbers handy for what that combination of exit
we'll always have the numbers handy.
I assumed it would be, what did I say? Probably about
800.
It turns out I undershot that considerably. So far this year, 57 for 59 across baseball. That's a 966 batting average.
Really?
It's almost a guaranteed hit because it's not softball. Nobody puts the rover out there.
Right.
If you could do that all the time, you'd be sweet. But a 966 batting average.
It must be an unusual shift to even have somebody there to catch the ball in the first place.
Harper has been talking about running more, and he does. It's with regard to all the walks. There was a great back and forth that was fun with he and Barry Bonds recently. Harper takes off, he swipes a bag, and for Bryce, that's 7 stolen bases.
It's turning into the player that Trout was. That was the whole idea, is that Trout's the guy at the speed and power, and now it's Harper's got more stolen bases and homers than he does.
So this is obviously a problem spot for Matt. I mean, it's a problem spot for any pitcher, 2 men on base, but we've been talking about this all night. Matt Harvey with men on base. And here's another intentional walk for Bryce Harper to load the bases. And what does this really say to Daniel Murphy? Sorry, I've got the totally turned around backwards.
I mean, Murphy's so hot right
Murphy's
now.
up.
He is Harper.
Right. See, I saw the guy batting. It brings us to an interesting point because this is going to bring up Ryan Zimmerman, who has had a terrible season. There's really no other way around it. And you think about, there's always a but. But you think about, he's got 307 on base. That's not great. 87 weighted runs created plus. That's not great. But he's been crushing the ball. He's got the 9th best exit velocity in baseball.
Higher than Harper's.
Higher than Harper's, almost 95 miles an hour. And you look at that and you got to think, well, the production has to follow, and it actually has. He was awful in April. 64 weighted runs created plus. He's actually been really good in May, slugging over 500 and 15% above average. When you hit the ball that hard, production will follow. And even though his season line looks kind of below average, he's been hitting the ball hard. This is a big spot.
We've talked about this before. The Nationals know that too. Like, that's why you don't make panic moves. You know he's going to come back around.
StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services. Just a replay here. I look forward to the StatCast replay because of the speed and the pop time and some of the things unofficially. I have an unofficial pop time of 2:08. Is that what you see over there?
2:08 sounds, it's actually slightly below average.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's pretty similar, I believe, to Plawecki's regular average. So, he's a decent enough framer. He's never really been elite as far as pop time goes.
Harper's top speed, 19.895 miles an hour. Breaking ball, ground ball, bobbled on the backhand. Everybody's safe, a run will score. Cabrera closed the gap nicely, I should say. There was one play, maybe one out on that play, period. A run was going to score, but now you don't get any outs. And Washington adds another 3-1.
Yeah, I wasn't sure we were going to get to talk about Cabrera's defense, and now we are somewhat forced to talk about Cabrera's defense. When you look at the last 5 seasons, see that's a play you have to make, and then he bobbles it again. You look at the last 5 seasons of baseball, 25 shortstops to play at least 2,500 innings, dead last in UZR. And I know UZR is not perfect, but over that amount of a sample size, it certainly has to tell you something. And the reason for that is it's the opposite of what you saw there. It's usually sure-handed. His range is
Remind us what UZR is again.
Ultimate zone rating. It's basically a way to look at defense, not so much in hits and errors, just how often did you make a play that other shortstops would have made or didn't make. So you get great credit if you make a play that's made 5% of the time by everybody, and if you boot a ball that's made 90% of the time, it really hurts you a lot. So he has actually been considered sure-handed just without a lot of range. Not exactly what we saw there, but that's going to hurt them a lot.
You know, look about Ruben Tejada. Like, think about Ruben Tejada right now. The irony, of course, the Cardinals picked up Tejada because they were so desperate for a shortstop. They had to bring him in. Now Peralta's coming back. Now they've got Peralta, Diaz. There's no spot for Tejada, and the Mets would love to have Tejada right now.
I actually joked about that on the Statcast podcast yesterday.
I listened to that.
Well, thank you very much, because Wright's been hurting, Duda's been hurting. For a couple of games, they actually had Eric Campbell as their backup shortstop. Now Flores is hurting. They could really use Ruben Tejada.
Lined into left field. It's off the glove of Conforto as he reaches over his shoulder. Couple of runs will come on down. Throw is wide. It kicks, well, not far enough away. Runners on second and third. Rendon plates a pair. Conforto went as far as he could go up the ladder and just went in and out of his glove. Washington having all kinds of fun tonight thus far.
These last couple of plays will not end up on the Mets end of the year highlight video.
No, and you know what, though? This is all going to go against Matt Harvey. I haven't actually seen if that was an error on Cabrera, so maybe these won't be earned runs. But we kind of talked about this before as far as the outfield defense, right? I said these numbers on these balls that aren't homers or ground balls that go at least 200 feet. He had a 313 average against last year, 517 this year. That's the kind of play that a good outfielder makes. It really bails his pitcher out. It just hasn't happened for him this year. We saw it in Coors Field with Conforto as well. And it's kind of across the board. Cespedes, we all know, is not Lagares in center field. Conforto, average at best in left, and he's made some big mistakes. And I think Granderson really isn't what he once was either. So Harvey is a pitcher having a tough time in tough spots and just not getting the support he needs.
Foul ball, that would have played it a couple of more.
We said that from the very beginning of this broadcast of how much Harvey. You're right. It all comes down to Harvey. They're all going to say that here's Harvey getting hit again. But this is, you see encapsulated in that play just the problems the Mets defense and outfield is having.
Yeah, and then on top of that, Cabrera throws the ball away too. That could have been the third out of the inning right there. Assuming Cabrera had made at least one out, I can't assume the double play, but they made one out, and then Conforto makes that catch. They're out of the inning, and now this is going to be another. I can only imagine the back page of the Post tomorrow. Harvey blows it against the Nationals.
Hot shot, base hit left field. One run will score. They'll send the other runner on around toward the plate to throw. To the plate is cut off. 2 more runs. Ramos continues his incredible year. He's got 18 RBIs. Washington 7, the Mets 1.
This escalated quickly.
Yeah, really, this really got out of hand. Going back to the Conforto play, 87.4% route efficiency. So to explain what route efficiency means, it's the route to the ball. If you had taken the exact perfect straight line, it's 100% route efficiency. And if you get big league outfielders are all pretty good. Even the worst amongst them are still pretty good. If you get below 90, that's where you start getting into real trouble. 87.4 miles an hour. It's not a great route, and you could see he missed it by about an inch there.
That is the GPS recalculating.
Right, that's exactly right. And then it turns you directly to the lake. That's kind of what happened there.
So Ramos picked on what looked like a slider out over the plate. Danny Espinosa singled back in the second inning. 7-1 is the score. Maybe an anxious Mets crowd, as you guys were talking about on occasion. They're really anxious tonight. They maybe have moved past that.
Yeah, just wait till we get into 4 solid innings of hot Logan Verrett action. The way this is going.
I think that's what people paid their money for tonight.
Yeah.
That is the pitching matchup we thought we were getting, was the Logan Verrett.
So that ball, too, Conforto, ruled double. Right? That's so unfair. This is like why I really know you don't want to use hits or errors anymore, because it's did you make the play or did you not make the play? Like he could have also, you look at Cabrera, that could have been a hit if he just couldn't get over to get his glove on it.
Line drive, center field, rocket shot. That's a base hit.
But to be fair, this is not all about the defense.
He's getting hit pretty
I
hard.
was going to get there real soon. I was going to make sure to get there real soon.
No more Harvey excuses.
No, pretty much all of these, if not all of them, have.
Well, the defense didn't walk Worth, and the defense didn't give up the home run to Murphy in the first inning, obviously.
That 110-mile-an-hour ball to Harper.
Yeah.
Revere's was clean. Harper's was clean. They walked Murphy, thinking again the defense would be there, and then it did get a little hairy. You're right, but Ramos hit the ball hard. Espinosa hit the ball hard. He's tied a career high with those 7 runs allowed.
I made jokes about Logan Verrett, who's actually warming the bullpen right.
You bet.
And it is a shame. I mean, yeah, I still feel like he's out of this inning and it's 3-1 if both those balls are caught. And it's obviously gotten away from him here, to say the least, but he could be out of this inning with a average defense.
So far, he has given up 5 batted balls at 100 miles an hour or more, and 3 have come this inning. So that's not on the defense, that's on him. But it all comes full circle. I mean, pitchers don't necessarily prevent runs so much as the entire defensive unit, including the pitcher, prevents runs. And nobody on the Mets is doing their job this inning, Harvey included.
Strasburg rounded out to short back in the second inning. A little slash as he chops it. Gobbled up. Part of this inning has been Wilson Ramos, our StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services. Mike, some numbers on this one from Ramos with RBIs number 17 and 18.
Yeah, 108 miles an hour right there. I mean, obviously, it didn't have a lot of launch angle, so it didn't go that far, but it didn't need to. It was perfectly placed. And, that ball in the meat of the zone. And you can see that he was trying to get it a little lower. And I wonder if this goes back to the fatigue potentially of all the innings after Tommy John. It's not just about velocity. It's about the crispness and the exact placement of where you're putting those balls, because if you're throwing hard but you're hanging it in the middle of the zone, it's going to get hit hard. And that's exactly what we've seen.
And it feels like it goes beyond. He talked about how this was.
Ben Revere dumps it in front of that Mets outfield, and then right on by it, it rolls all the way to the wall. Hold your thought, my friend. Revere all the way into third. That is a triple. It is a whitewash. 9-1 is the score. Revere is the 10th Nat to bat in this inning. He's 2 for 2 this inning. He was 1 for 9 in the series.
And most of my thoughts may not be printable right now. This is going to be, I believe, let's assume that, here comes Terry Collins right now. So let's assume that Matt Harvey is getting yanked right here. The shortest start of his entire career. He has only, the shortest start previous was last May 23rd, 4 innings against Pittsburgh, and here he is not even getting out of the third.
Narrative-wise, this also could not come at a worse time for him. Is what the Mets were talking about, and you wonder if, I heard you on the aforementioned StatCast podcast, and there was even the notion that Tacoma will ask him when he comes back on whether they would just have him skip a start or like take an extended break or something, or if they wait, or when Wheeler comes back they go to 6 pitchers. But there will be ramifications to this start.
There will, and I don't think enough people will focus on the fact that the Nationals actually have a decent defense. They came into the game with the best overall average exit velocity in baseball. The highest percentage of batted balls over 100 miles an hour at almost 30%. The major league average is 24%. This is a team that really can hit the ball hard, and that's exactly what they did, because Harvey not hitting his spots, leaving up hittable pitches, wasn't getting lucky with where they went, wasn't at all getting lucky with his defense. We just saw another play there with Cespedes that, if not caught, a more competent outfielder would have at least gotten in front of. That's 3 plays easily right there where the defense could have helped out their pitcher. You combine that with Harvey just giving up really hard hit balls, recipe for disaster. And I don't think anything is more of a disaster than 9-1 in the third against the Nationals.
Against Steven Strasburg.
Against Steven Strasburg.
Here's the thing, guys, for me, and that's what makes this fun, MLB Plus, and it makes whoever is joining us a lot of fun. If you paid attention, especially since the beginning, you're going through it, but I'm just going to lay it right down. You talked about the outfield. You talked about their lack of range. You talked about Juan Lagares not being out there. And 2 key plays changed this game. Otherwise, maybe made by a Lagares or someone at that level or someone close to that level. This is not a traditional broadcast, folks, and that's why. I mean, you're talking about advanced numbers. Even these two here sitting talking about, what's a hit, what's an error. If a guy takes a D-plus route to get to a baseball and it goes in and out of his glove, it's called a great effort and a great try. Well, these guys telling you, and the StatCast is telling you, it wasn't a great route, and it wasn't the kind of effort, and it probably should have been an error. So this is what the difference is in this kind of broadcast, and we've seen it. This, amongst all the games we've done, guys, with regard to your preview of a game and a couple subjects, this has unfolded quicker than anyone based on the metrics.
Absolutely, and I think we said it's really a team effort, a team collapse of an effort here, because Harvey was not doing his job, the defense absolutely was not doing your job. Generally, one of those two things will happen, and somebody will pick up somebody else. It hasn't happened, and now you're down 8 runs to Steven Strasburg, who, as we've talked about, has been excellent. This is an incredibly tough spot for the Mets to be in right now.
This angle from our T-Mobile greater coverage cam, just some frustrated fans. Maybe grabbing another round.
Hard to blame them.
9-1, Washington leads it. This is when you learn. Vin Scully said this is when you learn if you're a good broadcaster in a blowout, guys. You ready?
No pressure.
This is when you learn if you've got it.
All right, let's
make sure you stay out of trouble in broadcasts like these, too.
Everybody get every Mets reliever, every number we have on them, because we're going to need them all.
Well, that's a good point, actually. I'm glad you brought that up. Logan Verrett has been a spot starter for the Mets. He is their long man, basically, right? But he did pitch last night. He threw 19 pitches last night, but it's not a ton, but it's something. And you wonder how much he's going to have in him. Is he going to be in for the next 4 or 5 innings? And if not, are you going to see one inning from every single one of these guys?
There are the available pitchers. We will get to know a lot of them tonight. Verrett hopes to stretch it out, and certainly hope he is able to. Fernando Perez is joining us as well on a tough night for the Mets. Our Columbia grad, our former World Series participant with the Rays, and we have loved having him at this desk tonight at the ballpark. Some tough defensive plays in the outfield, Fernando, for Conforto and Cespedes, and this is what these guys are talking about, the lack of range, especially without Juan Lagares out there. Unfortunately, it showed up early, didn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, this is one of those games where the Mets just get exposed for what they are. Every team has this, maybe once a month, maybe once a season, the game where you see what they can be at their worst. So you saw maybe a little lack of range there up the middle with the Mets, which is the thing that, they live with. And then, of course, Cespedes isn't really a center fielder. He can man the position, but he isn't really a center fielder. They really, really miss Lagares out there. But, it's just a trade-off that they're making to keep his bat in the lineup and to get the bats that they want in that lineup.
This was some, Fernando, hi, it's Will. How's it going, man?
Friend.
When I was excited about I knew I was going to talk to you, I really wanted to have this big, long debate with you about how this Bryce Harper struggles with Matt Harvey. But I figured, well, Harvey's going to pitch a long time in this game. We're going to have plenty of time. Looks like I better ask it now. So someone like Harper against Harvey, he was 0 for 20 coming into this game. Now he's 1 for 22. A lot of the statistically minded analytic people will claim that pitcher-batter matchup, that is somewhat a little overstated. That's not something that it's something that players overrate a little bit. They feel like they own this guy or this guy owns me. As a former player, but also as a really smart guy, not to say that not all former players are smart guys, but where do you fall on that spectrum?
It's strange. It's person to person. So concerning guys that I played with, we want to bring out some stats on Ben Francisco. Do you remember Ben Francisco?
Yes, I do.
He, at some point, he was something like 8 for 9 with 6 home runs off of Andy Sonnenstein. What explains that? I mean, he hit, probably 10% of the home runs that he hit in his career off of Andy Sonnenstein. What explains that? You don't really know. Something that I said to some people that I think they thought was a little bit crazy, but I stand by. If you could imagine, perhaps if your father threw from a certain arm angle and you took BP off of this guy forever, and then, you get into games and you're facing somebody that throws from that similar arm slot, I think that it could maybe trigger something in you that could be really, really beneficial to you. So it really depends. There are a lot of guys that really don't notice who they're facing. They don't look at video, and they're so trained on seeing the ball out of the hand, they don't really pay attention to who they're facing. And, they happen to destroy a guy or have terrible statistics against guys. It's interesting when you hear a lot of analysts talk about their history facing guys. They have totally different recollections from what the statistics say.
Hey, Fernando, it's Mike. So I want to ask you about this situation we're seeing tonight. It's a big game. You're playing against your biggest rival. You've got one of your aces on the mound against one of their aces, and you go out and get blown up, down 9-1 in the third inning. How long does it take you to get your head back in the game after that?
Well, who are you and what position are you playing?
Well, how about you playing the outfield if you're down 9-1?
Well, it's the thing about it is, you know, in the outfield, you're just frequently running to the fence and, you know, collecting the ball and throwing it back in. You know, a thing happens when innings get long and you have errors and people walk guys. You get out of the game, and no matter how mentally tough you are and how much on guard you are for that, it's just the way that it works. So, you know, a reason that you want to have quick innings is to keep your guys into the game and have them active. It is really, really difficult to stay in the game. I mean, you know, some guys are going to come up to the plate that haven't hit for 45 minutes. So it's very, very difficult. It can be really, really challenging.
Fernando, with regard to Neil Walker, as this inning is led off by Curtis Granderson, he struck out back in the first inning. With regard to Neil Walker and fitting in and the comfort he is finding there, he singled back in the second. He hasn't been quite the hitter at home that he has been on the road. Where's his head right now? I know you are able to catch up with him pretty regularly. Tell us about Neil Walker and your interactions with him.
Yeah, I spoke to him briefly today. I mean, he's cooled off a little bit. I mean, he hit 10 home runs in the first month of the season. He's just, you know, hit a couple singles and doubles since. I mean, I don't even know what it's like to hit 10 home runs in a month, let alone a season, and to just have that sitting there. I mean, this guy can, you know, he hits 10 more for the rest of the season, and he had a great season already. You know, the whole Daniel Murphy, Neil Walker thing, I think that's just generally played up. They're both doing a great job for their teams. I think that they've both exceeded expectations. I didn't think that Daniel Murphy would be hitting almost 400 to this point this year. I also didn't envision Neil Walker rising to the occasion of being traded for obviously such an important player last year. I didn't, you know, think that he would rise to the occasion and do what he's done. I think that he is one of those players, again, a switch hitter. A lot of their consistency is contingent upon the guys that they're facing. So, you know, he can run into a stretch and face a whole bunch of right-handers and get himself on track. You know, there's really no telling with him. And Murphy, I think that everybody is just sort of expecting him to come back down to earth at some point. What's interesting about him is physically, he seems to have something figured out. He looks a lot different in the box than he did earlier in his career. When I look at him in the box, he reminds me right now of Joey Votto. That balance, that straightness to his back. It's visually, if you take a snapshot, that's what he's looking like. So perhaps he has gone through another evolution as a hitter, and he's just there. That's just the level that you're going to see him play at for a while.
Fernando Perez is at Citi Field. You're watching MLB Plus, presented by Amazon Web Services. David Wright struck out back in the first inning.
Yeah, and, you know, Fernando Wright obviously struggling quite a bit, not getting scratched late in games. How does an athlete deal with being in that situation where it's clearly something's not quite right. They don't seem to know whether he's going to play until he gets to the park. It feels disorienting, not just maybe to the player, but even to the team a little bit.
Definitely, and it's very, very difficult to get a really good gauge on it. Being a media member, the only people that really know what's going on with David Wright is David Wright, the trainer, and a few of his teammates. I mean, baseball players are essentially trained to sort of distract and give a certain version of the story. There's also that sort of onus, that masculine onus to sort of downplay injuries. But what I saw in him today, his batting practice was unbelievable today. That was not the batting practice of a guy whose back is ailing. So perhaps, you know, the time off, maybe it's going to be a thing that it gives him that feeling of having a day off and then coming out to the park and feeling so amazing. And then maybe he'll have to learn how to deal with that. He looked amazing, so whatever it is that he did, I'm sure that it's working. And these guys, especially nowadays, they have I mean, every resource possible with them. Close with Rocco Baldelli, who dealt with the mitochondrial disorder, and they tried literally everything under the sun to try to get him the right treatment. Something that you're seeing a lot more today is you're having athletes going over to Germany and to Europe to do what is it's a drug that they treat called Actovegin. Actovegin is a calf blood derived homeopathic treatment that countless athletes have gotten this. Usain Bolt. When I actually went over there and was treated by this man, Dr. Hans Müller-Wolfert. He's the trainer for the German national team. And when you go to his office, I saw Bono in the office. I saw other, famous guitar players. Everybody goes over there. Top flight soccer players, Madonna, Usain Bolt. All these people go over there. And essentially, it's a little bit like the PRP injections, which guys are getting. Actovegin increases cell function, and like the PRP injections that guys are doing, it's just sort of a new tactic to try to drive some good blood in and drive some bad blood out. I'm sure everything is on the table for this guy. He's also only 33, which is, very, very interesting. I was in the Nats locker room earlier, and, Jason Worth, 36, he said that he had about an hour of treatment just to kind of get loose and get out there. So, once you're getting up there in age, a lot of torque on the body, difficult to get ready. But obviously with this spinal stenosis, which is the condition that David Wright has, it's a little bit more difficult. So I'm certain that they're trying everything and that every possible scenario is on the table.
Thank you, Fernando. We appreciate it.
Of course.
We'll catch up with you in a little bit. That one rolled to the right side. Conforto is done. Wright went down prior to that. We'll get back to the subject of David Wright. And the score is 9-1. It is all Nationals. Chatting cage was open, and you were interactive. And Jacob deGrom was part of it. We talk about a big-time athlete. MLB Plus, presented by Amazon Web Services. Let's go inside the chatting cage with Jake deGrom.
It's a lot of fun. These guys are great to be around. We enjoy being at the ballpark every day and learning from each other. And I think the main thing that makes us good is how much we root for each other when we're not the ones pitching. We watch each other warm up, and when you're the one warming up and you see your teammates down there, and I don't really know why it started, but you see them down there, it really feels like they got your back and that they're rooting for you. So it's an honor to be a part of this rotation, and hopefully I'm here for many years to come.
NJ Mets fan 007 wants to know, after the increased workload last season, have you changed your prep this year?
No, I wouldn't say I changed my prep. When you come into spring training, you try to come into spring training ready. I think, I took a little extra time off in the off season just because we went so late in the year. So I think that was the only adjustment that I had to make, trying to get things going a little quicker in a shorter amount of time to get ready for spring training. But, my routine's still the same. I'm still work on the same things in between starts. So all that preparation has stayed the same.
Good stuff. Our chatting cage, Citi Field, all Nationals. Welcome back to MLB Plus, presented by T-Mobile. Mike Petriello, Will Leach, Darren Sutton here at our MLB.com studios. Ashley Chavez, part of our social media coverage as well. Interact with us, hashtag MLB Plus, with your thoughts, your questions. There have to be some Mets fans that are moving the needle with either frustration or curiosity, or concerned about their outfield, or wondering if Juan Lagares may find himself back to his starting lineup, even if he doesn't hit what they want him to hit.
Or hiding under the couch, the way this game's gone so far.
Bryce Harper leads it off. That's always fun, no matter the score. Destination viewing for Bryce Harper. When he came out in 2011, he was the #1 player in the land in every single ranking, certainly. Skipped his last couple of years of high school, as you'll remember, and played a little bit in junior college.
I wrote a piece on Bryce Harper right before he came up his rookie year. He was still 19. and he was exactly who he is now.
I believe it. I'm show you my favorite Bryce Harper fact. Following the 2013 season and also following the 2014 season, he was ranked by Major League Baseball players in a Sports Illustrated poll as the most overrated player in baseball.
Love that.
And when people say, well, you don't know because you never played the game, I point to that and say, those people did play the game. And look what they thought about Bryce Harper.
And it was funny, too, because he was already, he actually told me in the interviews for GQ magazine before anybody really knew, outside of baseball people, who knew Bryce Harper was. He said, I'm going to wreck this game, and we need to have more individuals in baseball. And he certainly backed that up with personality and his play.
Well, one of the most historic seasons of all time last year. And you know, that's a word you can use a lot. This is historic, that's historic. Literally historic. It's very, very rare that anyone has had a season like that, and especially at that age.
It's insane that it was that.
Got him with a really good changeup, fooled him there, and had him way out front. That's on 1-2, he takes it in on his hands, and he fouls it off.
I mean, remember, he was younger than the Rookie of the Year last year.
He didn't face a pitcher younger than him until last season. Now, if you look at this is weighted runs created plus. It's a number we use a lot. It's an all-inclusive offensive stat. 100 is league average. So each one of those, it's players from last season. Bryce Harper isn't just first. Of course, he is first. He is very, very first, and to a historic level.
He's so far on that graph that he is going to lap them if he keeps going in that direction.
Interesting with regard to that poll. By the way, Harper showed his arm off earlier. If we have a chance, we will show it to you. Preventing a runner, sometimes an arm, even though it's just now maybe a touch above average, as Mike was telling us. There are outfield assists, and then there are accurate and good firm throws, which prevent a runner from tagging. That's what that was there. You were around him at an interesting point, wrote some inside stuff. I was around him as a high schooler at the Perfect Game All-American game. And I think a lot of that attitude that maybe went into that poll went into high schoolers he was around. He was uncomfortable around them by no fault of his own. And they were uncomfortable around him, and there was envy. There was absolute envy. And that's, I think, what is behind that poll.
Well, you see how far he was in that graph ahead of major league players. Imagine how far he was of high school players when he was in high school. As a catcher, by the way. Let's not forget that.
He was younger than all those guys, especially at that Perfect Game event.
It's just absurd.
He's hanging around, fouling a couple of good ones off. Let's see if Rhett wants to go back to the changeup to Bryce Harper. Three-time All-Star, most valuable player, Rookie of the Year.
And we're going to be talking about Bryce Harper for the next 15 years at this level of intensity. He is a, listen, Mike Trout may be the better player. We'll see how that goes as the years go along. But Bryce Harper is going to be the center of almost every baseball conversation. In the way that many of, in a Reggie Jackson type way, in a Barry Bonds type of way, he's going to be the center of it for a long time.
He is going to make all of the dollars. Whatever contract you comprehend for him, double it. Right? Easily $400 million. More than that, $500 million. Like, this guy's the limit.
I mean, you've got a team like the Yankees that are putting roster construction in a lot of ways to prepare to get him, or at least go after him. You will not see him signing a Strasburg-esque contract before he hits free agency. That is for certain.
Changeup that last time. He did his best to keep it fair. Brett, changeup's a pretty good pitch. 10 pitches, by the way, in this at-bat. Sees that one go into the dirt. Another changeup. Walk rate crazy. 2-0 count rate crazy. He gets to a 2-0 count. Nearly a quarter of all of his at-bats. League averages 12-13% of the time.
When there's this many pitches in an at-bat, you usually say, boy, that hitter's really hanging in there. But it feels like Verrett's the one that's hanging in there. And 13.
Might be the highlight of Logan Verrett's career.
Yeah,
you tell the grandkids.
I went 15 pitches with Bryce Harper.
So go at some point and see high school baseball somewhere in your area before it ends this year, folks. You'll see 17-year-olds playing high school baseball. Bryce Harper played in the Arizona Fall League at 17. Yes, but he was only, oh boy, he is frustrated with that one. That speaks to the competitiveness. And you know what? If that bothers you, then there's something maybe wrong with you. I love watching a guy like this. Let's go back to his throw. Our StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services, Mike.
Yeah, so you can see you can get some forward motion there, and that's a huge reason how you get some extra distance on the throw. 95.3, that's really good. That's above average by a lot. and is actually pretty close to being on target. So I think if the runner had gone, he would have been dead meat at the plate because that was a strong, solid throw.
Yeah, you talk about him throwing the bat down like that. I mean, that is what we claim we want from our baseball players, is for them to, we want them to hustle down the line. We want them to show grit and fire, and they want to win. And for some reason, when Harper does it, it really bothers people. And to me, that's what you want from a baseball player.
I think Logan Verrett's telling the umpire, hey, did you see that? I got 13
pitches
against Bryce Harper. It was cool.
And he said, did you see it?
I'd like to say I have any idea what they're doing right now. It's very...
Well, let's see who they talk to. There may be a light up there somewhere that one of the defenders is talking about, whether it's Verrett seeing something or... There doesn't seem to be too much passion with regard to argument in that. I don't know if it's, there's a scoreboard down the right field line. You can see it in our shot there that I have been in games and called games there where outfielders or third basemen have asked to have something done with that scoreboard.
I can easily see Terry Collins coming up with any excuse possible to get this game called before the fifth inning.
There's a locust wave coming in.
Yeah, right.
So they got Harper. Daniel Murphy's been intentionally walked. He is homered.
That bat's going to make it harder for Verrett to eat up his innings. That was a long at bat. He's already got 20 pitches. They need 3 or 4 innings out of him today.
Yes, they do. Really looking forward to see Eric Campbell pitching the 8th inning.
Yeah, exactly. That's. Do we have StatCast data on his?
We will. So one change that Murphy has really made over the last couple of years is when you watch him step up to the plate, he's really crouching a lot more. He used to stand up pretty straight, and he used to be kind of in the middle of the batter's box, and now he's crouched. He's closer to the plate, and that's allowed him to cover more of the plate. We already talked about how he's excellent at making contact, and he's hit more balls off the ground this year into the air. So it's really completely turned himself around with real changes that you can see and measure. And I like that because it's not just, oh, it's a hot streak. And you can say, oh, he's actually made real tangible changes.
Logan Verrett in for Matt Harvey, and if you just happen to have logged on or have found us on your smartphone, smart TV, we appreciate you being with us, but you missed Matt Harvey because he wasn't out there long, had poor outfield defense behind him. He was hit really hard as well. Now, here's what's notable. 2 2/3 innings with the shortest outing of his career. Last year on May 23rd at Pittsburgh, he went 4 innings, gave up 7 runs. Every start of his career, he's gone 5 or more innings. Every start outside of that 1. So 4 was the previous low, but beyond that, he had gone 5 or more in every start.
Which is ironic because it kind of looks like he's going to be getting some time off.
Well, that's a good question. Here's a question. Does he make his next start?
It feels with a high-profile start like this against someone like Strasburg, with everything else that's been kind of built up, and to have a nightmare inning like that, this is going to be all, like, not to say that the Mets make decisions based off what's in the tabloids, but without question, there was concern coming into this game. There's even more so now.
Ball crushed. He let it travel deep into his stance, and not only did he let it travel with a little bloop single to left, he hit it off the base of the wall. This man is white hot. He stayed back on a breaking ball, hit it out. Then he's confident against the fastball 92-93 to go the other way with it.
Just like October again.
Oh, so they just keep twisting that knife. You know, like Mets fans haven't had a hard enough night. Now they have Daniel Murphy pounding home runs and pounding doubles. But you're right. It just goes to show what a real professional hitter he's become. And he was always slightly above average as a hitter, I think. But that was a 91-mile-an-hour fastball. It was a strike, but it was low in the zone, right into Daniel Murphy's nitro zone right there. It was a good pitch, but not a good enough pitch that he couldn't get a bat on it.
And it's definitely not a good pitch to Murphy, who loves it, right?
Right, exactly right.
Did he top 100 on the exit velo?
I'm going to see, but I'm going to say it would be right around that. Let's see what pops up here.
7-2. The runs scored in the third and the first. 9-1 overall as a score.
100.1.
Nice.
So yes, barely. But he had it at 25-degree launch angle. We keep saying 25 to 30 is that real sweet spot. So if you can put it there, it's going to fly. That is the best place to hit a baseball. And so 100 miles an hour isn't really elite. It's good for sure. But that ball went 373 feet because he had it at the right launch angle. That kind of goes back to what I was saying about Murphy last couple of years, 43% ground balls. This year, 27%. You start elevating that launch angle and you combine it with good, even if not outstanding exit velocity, and you're going to find good things.
Just a full-on approach change that seemed to have happened mid-season, which I think is almost as fun as, like, he is, in April and May, he was not this player last year.
That's right. But the part of the reason for that, I think, is Kevin Long, who is the Mets hitting coach. I believe last year was his first year, and so it took some time to kind of work with him. He helped Granderson change, had a lousy first half, and really turned it on in the second half, and he's really taken that approach with him to the Nationals, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's just a hot streak at the right time. He's become a real superstar.
And he's out there at second base in scoring position. 9-1 is the score. Washington is on top. Murphy's been on all 3 times. Anthony Rendon doubled in a pair. He did so back in the 3rd inning off the glove of Michael Conforto. And so the score is 9-1. We're talking about the Mets have held the upper hand since the start of last season. 12-9 in the previous 21 matchups. Series since the start of 15 that was even here at this ballpark, 6 apiece. We take you back to the pretty swing and the double and our StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services. Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, as we can see, the fastball 91 miles an hour in the strike zone. Exit velocity of 100, as we talked about, it's pretty good, but once you combine it with that launch angle, it's ideal. 100 miles an hour at a 25-degree launch angle, 711 batting average. That basically means it's a hit 71% of the time. And so it's a very, very good thing when you can do that. And that's basically what Murphy's doing. He's not hitting, 500-foot moonshots. That's not his game. He's hitting these hard hit balls at the right angle to the right spot. And, he's not going to hit 398 all season long, probably. But it's been a year now. He's been better than Cano for the last year. He's been better than Rizzo. He's been better than Buster Posey. And that doesn't even count the playoffs. If you counted the playoffs, those numbers would be off the charts. He's been a star. And 3 years and $38 million.
That deal looks fantastic.
That looks amazing right now. Even if he does nothing for the next 2 years, that deal's going to be fine.
And it's funny how the Nationals, it doesn't look this way tonight, but they do need him in a lot of ways. You saw when Harper had that game against the Cubs where he was walked so many times. One of the reasons he was walked so many times was because Zimmerman was on deck, and Zimmerman's been struggling. We've talked a little bit about how he's been hitting the ball hard, but he's clearly been struggling a little bit. If Murphy's hitting like that, the last thing you want to do is put someone on base in front of him, even if it is Bryce.
You're absolutely right, because Zimmerman, as we talked about, Revere has been a mess all year. Rendon has not really lived up to expectations. Espinoza has been a mess all year. Murphy and Harper earlier in the season and Ramos have really been the guys who are carrying this offense right now.
Check out this angle from T-Mobile greater coverage as we peek in with the lead of Zimmerman on into the batter's box with Anthony Rendon. 9-1 Washington leads it. Well, excuse me on a breaking ball away, and it's in there in front of that Mets outfield.
It is that kind of night for the Mets.
Now, I don't want to suggest that the Mets outfield should have come down with all of those balls. Probably not, although the Conforto one I think was egregious because the route efficiency was so poor. But it just kind of goes to show that this outfield is above average hitting and considerably below average on defense. And I think that's the kind of thing that's really hurting this team.
And this is not an accident.
No, they
by
built
design.
it this way. They built it. They could have had Lagares in center or Lagares playing somewhere, and it just really hasn't worked out that way. And that's going to be an issue all year long, I think.
So what do you do as Wilson Ramos digs in with the bases loaded and 1 out? I mean, sometimes you have to be bold, don't you?
I think that you should start building the lineups maybe less about the opposing hitter and more about who you have on the mound, right? You have Syndergaard on the mound, you expect strikeouts. So maybe you can get away with a Cespedes out there. But you have someone who's struggling like a Harvey or maybe a Colon who doesn't miss a lot of bats. Actually, you need that A-plus outfield out there.
And I think that was part of the design why they felt they could get away with not that great of a defensive outfield, because they had so many strikeout pitchers.
Right.
When you've got someone like Harvey this year, the strikeout rate is so down, all of a sudden it reveals that outfield deficiencies even more.
And it's tough with Cespedes because he is actually outperforming himself from last year. When he was at the Mets, he was outstanding last year, and he's doing better than that this year. So I get you're not going to take him out of the lineup. But, what do you do with that defense? You just need to play in American League parks as much as possible.
See the spin rate on that last slider. Wilson Ramos, we've talked about the year he is having. He added to those numbers back in the 3rd inning. One of the biggest contributors, especially amongst the backstops already. The play is home. right on top of home plate. No runs scored there, but again, that doesn't take away from who Ramos is. And you start talking about dangerous and elite catchers offensively. Maybe throw it out there. I know you like to talk a lot about weighted runs created plus. Wilson Ramos is having that kind of year.
Number one amongst all catchers in baseball. There's been 26 catchers with 80 plate appearances, so roughly one per team. And he has had the best weighted runs created plus above Lucroy, Molina, and McCann, and these guys who kind of are known for being above average hitters. And the really interesting part about this is Ramos was brutal for the last couple of years. He's arguably the worst hitting catcher in baseball, regular catcher, him or Mike Zunino for the last couple of years. And here he's shooting all the way up to number one. So if you want to say it's a small sample, over 100 or so plate appearances, there's something to that, I'm sure, but you cannot fake performance like that. And the one change we know about is he can see better. That feels like that might be important.
Well, this is, this was what they were hoping from him 3 or 4 years ago. They thought maybe now he wouldn't become the best hitting catcher in baseball, but they didn't imagine him as a total no-hit catcher that he's been for the last couple of years. So maybe the combination of the LASIK with really finding, he was probably all told not as bad of a hitter as he's been the last couple of seasons. We're seeing that step forward now.
Bases are full of Nats again, as you can see. Danny Espinosa singled a couple of times. That's straight up stance. And pours over the inside corner from Verrett. By the way, Logan Verrett out of Baylor. That's third-round pick in 2011. We've seen his stuff. Fastball about 91. Likes to throw his slider. It's about 8 miles an hour slower. Occasional curveball and a changeup as well. Threw a good changeup earlier to Bryce Harper in that 730 pitch at bat.
3 hours ago.
Secondary pitch right there, and down he goes. (9-1) is the score. And so again, we see more threats. It could have gotten a little bit uglier. Espinosa goes down on strikes, but the Zimmerman walk, for me, the most fun part of that inning was an out, and it was Bryce Harper's at bat.
And you could tell by his reaction to it, he was frustrated by that. And I think, again, I know Harper is he's a magnet for conversation. But I really can't emphasize that enough. If you don't like a guy who in a 9-1 game has this incredibly competitive at-bat and then just misses, he didn't hit that ball that soft. Like, it's not like he swung and missed. Like, he hit the ball pretty hard to left field. He just missed his pitch. For him to be that upset, that's what I want from him.
If you don't like Bryce Harper, you're going to find a reason no matter what. Right? If he didn't give that effort, you'd be mad at him for that. I understand. Like, make baseball fun again? Totally on board. Jamal Collier is joining us out at the ballpark. Jamal, we're talking about Bryce Harper. Obviously, it's been a statistically crazy year with him with regard to being pitched around. But we were just talking about his reaction on that last at-bat. Went more than a dozen pitches, and he was clearly frustrated. It appears as if since he was 8 until now, he never stops competing. He loves to compete.
And that's really the kind of guy I've seen from him so far. He's always playing his hardest. And it's kind of weird that he got this rap for being a player who doesn't hustle, or he obviously got benched earlier in his career at some point for not running the ball out, so running out to first base. But he is a guy who does have that hustle and does have that kind of, just the want to win and the want to be really a great player. So it's just weird that he got that rap at some point along the line that he wasn't like that.
Yeah, this is your first year on the beat, and one of the things you always see about Bryce Harper is, he's with the make baseball great again thing, and he likes the attention. Is he on the lookout for clown questions? Have you asked a clown question yet, bro? Has any of that happened yet?
I'm trying to get there.
But I mean, what's it like dealing with him on a daily basis?
Yeah, he's a very smart and thoughtful athlete. It's one of the things that I've kind of, I don't say surprised about, but I've just kind of struck me the most so far in dealing with him and being around him this much. He's a guy who works really hard and who really wants to be, like I said, one of the best players in the league and continue to be one of the best players in the league. You see him trying to find ways to get better or to improve himself every single day. And he's for the most part, completely been a joy to be around so far, to kind of see how he goes about his business every day.
Hey, Jamal, it's Mike. I was wondering, Bryce Harper, nobody's pitching to him anymore. He's got one of the highest walk rates of the 21st century. He's like Barry Bonds-esque. How frustrated is he about that you can't really get a good pitch to drive?
Yeah, this is something I talked to him about a couple of weeks ago here, and really after that Cubs series, to say, is it tough to stay in a rhythm or to really continue hitting when you only see maybe 1 or 2 pitches to hit a night or every other night? And he is saying, at least publicly, is saying that he's not frustrated at all. He's going to take his walks. He's going to look for his pitch to hit. And if he doesn't get it, he's confident taking ball 4 and trusting the guys in Zim and Murphy and those guys behind him to be able to drive him in. You might see him start to do some things in the base paths and try to steal some bases like we saw earlier tonight. But so far, seems comfortable knowing that people are not going to attack him and not going to pitch to him, and he's going to take those walks so far.
MLB Plus is presented by T-Mobile. We move into the 4th inning. Cespedes, Duda, and Walker due up for the New York Mets. 9-1 is the score. Joining us at Citi Field, covering the Nationals, is Jamal Collier. The man on the mound, Steven Strasburg. Much was made about the extension. It's a very creative financial extension as well. I mean, obviously, the relationship between Scott Boras and the Nationals organization and Mark Lerner, it's very unique in this industry, isn't it?
It's interesting to see so many clients have such a high-profile agent and be on the same team. And for the most part, the two sides have worked well, have gotten along together, and made a lot of these kind of deals. Where they have had to be interesting with the finances, whether it be backloading the contract or whatever may need to kind of get it done. This was a deal that Strasburg was very much, into trying to make a way to get an extension here. And it's something that Boras, made happen. And he kind of, was asked about the fact that he never has players sign extensions, and he said, "I do work for the player. If the player wants that and wants to have that work out, then he's a guy who makes it happen." But of course, this all started with a phone call from Mark Lerner to Scott Boras to get this done. So you just have that kind of relationship where the owner can go directly to the agent. Like you said, it's something we don't see really throughout all of baseball.
6 strikeouts, by the way. Lucas Duda now digs in. He hopes to avoid being number 7.
Jamal, it was only 6-7 months ago where the Nationals just looked like an organization in disarray. People getting choked in the dugout, and everybody's mad at each other, and they have this great season from Harper and can't capitalize. Everything's falling apart. I know you weren't there last year, but Dusty Baker was thought to be this sort of calming influence. Do you see that among them?
It's tough to tell. I'll say this. Everybody in that clubhouse, in that locker room right now really likes Dusty Baker. They're enjoying playing for him. And they have responded to him and have taken on a little bit of his personality. What I've seen starting this year and through these first couple of months, dating back to spring training, I don't see any of that, of the tension and the dissension that we saw or heard about last season in that locker room. And you can say Dusty's definitely had an effect on these guys, and he encourages them to be themselves, encourages them to be laid back and to enjoy the game and to have fun. So I think that Dusty definitely has influenced them in that way. I've been on the mind to say, let's see what happens when this team has to face some kind of adversity. Let's see if they face a long losing streak, or let's see if they have an injury significant to one of their big guys, or big arms, or big hitters, and see how Dusty's able to respond and get these guys to deal with that. Because so far it's been all positive for them, and they've been off to a great start, and they've got guys playing, some guys at least playing to the level that they think they can be. But so far so good right now. Dusty's been exactly what they needed and exactly what they tapped.
2 balls and 2 strikes to count on Lucas Duda. As we mentioned, he struck out back in the 2nd inning. And he goes down over the inside corner with a fastball from Strasburg. Behind Strasburg in center field is Ben Revere. Revere having a stunning season with regard to low batting average and not reaching base. Obliques stink for hitters, we know that. What have conversations been like with Ben Revere this year?
He feels like he's still kind of figuring things out and almost is in a late spring training April mode. It's a little bit of a weird situation for him to be figuring this out on the fly for a team that is trying to compete this year, that is trying to stay on a roll and stay ahead in this National League East division. Dusty Baker kind of made a point that the guy that was replacing him before, when Revere was out, was Michael Taylor, and he wasn't getting on base either. The Nationals have not had a leadoff hitter really this entire season. And that's kind of surprising to see where they are, if they are where they are without one. Anthony Rendon, I saw a stat a couple of days ago, was tied for the most appearances in baseball with nobody on base. And it's just completely absurd for a guy who was hitting second for the most part of the year and is not a leadoff hitter, for him to just be always coming up with 1 out and feeling as he has to take pitches and feel like he has to do certain things. You could maybe wonder if that contributed a little bit to some of the struggles that he had and is having so far to start the season. But the Nationals need to get Revere right. Right now, they still think it's in that window where he's still coming back from the injury and is not 100. He's still trying to get his timing and get into the flow of the game and the season. But it's certainly a concern because they are starting with 1 out for the most part every night.
Jamal, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Base hit. Neil Walker, he's got a pair of them. 7 strikeouts so far. By the way, the strikeout that was just dealt to Lucas Duda, we take a look at the StatCast replay of it, powered by Amazon Web Services.
Yeah, this is a fastball. I think it's going to be pretty much right down the middle, but over the inside plate there. I don't think Lucas Duda liked it that much, but 97 heat on the inside corner.
Extension of 6'8" there.
That's very good. That's going to make it look a little faster coming out of his hands than he would otherwise think. And if you're going to put it on the black like that, especially inside to a lefty, it's a really hard pitch to hit.
I don't see a single way Duda could have done anything.
No,
with that pitch.
That's almost the exact same pitch right here that Strasburg just threw, and the same result. Called strike, and each of the first 2 outs of this inning were called strikeouts.
If he gets that strike, he's unhittable. But he doesn't throw a slider.
Easy chance is Cabrera. I don't know if we'll measure his first to third or home the first time there as he hustles up the line. 4-3 ground out. Steven Strasburg is 6-0 this year. The long-term extension coming his way, an investment in his future. As we talked about, creatively pieced together. And here is the press conference. We'll have it for you in just a moment. But when Mike Rizzo and he and Scott Boras got together, and Mark Lerner had something to do with it as well. Here is some of the conversation upon the deal.
We started from ground zero here, and we've built ourselves something that we believe in, that we think is special, and I'm proud to be a part of it. We have plans in our minds about what we're doing going forward, and we rarely look back of what we've accomplished. We're mostly looking forward, but every so often you take a step back and you look at the total body of work so far, and we take pride in it. We're not satisfied by any means. We've got a goal in mind, and that's to win a world championship for the city of DC, and we won't rest until we accomplish the goal.
When Steven Strasburg was drafted, 1-1 overall. Rizzo was the interim GM back in '09, but that's a pretty good resume right there.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a $450 million resume, but it's certainly very impressive. I think when he made the Strasburg pick, he was an interim GM. That's a good way to get yourself upgraded. It was a no-brainer pick in a lot of ways, but that's a nice little place to be able to start.
Yeah, and underrated there, Max Scherzer. I think everybody knows that they gave him this giant contract from Detroit, but Mike Rizzo actually drafted him when he was the scouting director in Arizona.
Right, out of Missouri.
I think Diamondbacks looking back would wish they still had hung on to him, because I think they gave up on him pretty quickly, and then he went to Detroit and he blossomed, and Mike Rizzo, obviously knowing him very well, made sure to get him back for Washington.
Scherzer was an interesting study early on in his career, being around the Arizona Major League Max Scherzer and the discussions that went into him maybe being a better closer, and the swings and misses that didn't come with 2 strikes. But boy, they come with 2 strikes now, don't they?
They certainly do.
We take a peek in, by the way, at our fabulous angle tonight from the T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam down the right field line. You see with that angle, Steven Strasburg beaten by a fastball, and Strasburg has put the ball in play 3 times tonight.
Barrett, I think, appreciated him swinging at the first pitch right there.
I think everybody in the ballpark appreciated him swinging at the first pitch. And if you're Barrett, this is not an easy situation for him to be in, right? Like, he's the guy who's got to eat these innings, and I think everybody just throw strikes, man. Like, just do not walk guys. Get us some good innings here. And some of these guys, they end up in a tough spot, because if you do that, and maybe you throw 4 or 5 innings, and maybe you're not available for 3 or 4 days, and maybe that gets you sent to the minors because you did your job.
And your ERA suddenly went up because they needed you.
Right, but they needed a fresh arm, and maybe you have an option. Verrett is actually interesting because he was drafted by the Mets in the 3rd round in 2011. Got picked by Baltimore in the Rule 5 draft. Baltimore let him go on waivers to Texas, still under Rule 5 rules. So then when Texas didn't want to hang on to him, came back to the Mets last year.
So he had 2 separate teams from Rule 5 before he came back to the Mets.
Right. And here he's actually been kind of a useful swingman.
We were talking just a moment ago with Jamal Collier about the thoughts of Ben Revere. Ben has had a good night tonight, certainly. Line to short, single, line drive the other way for a single, and then triple in the 4th inning into the alley. So a 2-for-3 night when you have had 1 hit at home this year. Now you get on the road and you get a couple of more hits. He's had 1 at home this year.
It's strange to think that it took Matt Harvey to be the guy to get you right after the year that he's had. Is kind of a crazy thought.
You know, going back to the image we saw of the players that Mike Rizzo has acquired, the guys that were drafted 1-1 overall, Strasburg and Bryce Harper. A little bit of luck there, right? Because if you're going to get the #1 overall pick, to be able to have those guys who
the
are
no-brainers
the
that everyone wants.
No-brainers. You look at the Astros; they had 3 straight #1 picks, right? Okay, they got Carlos Correa, who is awesome, no doubt. But they had the Brady Aiken mess. Brady Aiken got hurt, never signed with them, looked really bad for the Astros. They had Mark Appel, who did not really live up to expectations, ended up being part of a package of 5 guys they had to trade to get Ken Giles. It really just kind of goes to show you can't, it's not like basketball where you can kind of really try to be that #1 pick because you don't know who's going to be available. You're not always going to get that Harper. You're not going to get that Strasburg, and they got it twice. That's a really big part of this.
And of course, the great thing about the Correa thing is the one pick that did turn out to get them the superstar is the one that everyone at the time, they said, why did they settle for this guy? Because he was signable first.
Right, because I think it was Lance McCullers was who they wanted to give money to. And obviously, Correa's turned out to be phenomenal.
He's turned out to be so much more than they even thought he was going to be.
Right.
They thought he was the settling #1 pick, and he turned out to be the superstar.
But you have 3 straight #1 picks, and you get 1 superstar and 2 complete total zeros. It's not really a great return on investment. It just goes to show how lucky the Nationals were to get those picks in those years.
Strasburg, Revere, and Worth all outs, all on the ground. And against Verrett, again, just trying to save the bullpen and to trying to do a nice job cleaning things up. So if you're just joining us, a big inning in the 3rd inning, gentlemen, and it was an inning in which we saw the betrayal of the outfield for the New York Mets, a ball that was off the glove of Michael Conforto, a couple of runs scored, a ball that was in front of the glove of Yoenis Cespedes that he overran, a couple of more runs scored. But tonight, to be fair to the outfield, and they struggled. I mean, there's not like the effort isn't there, but Matt Harvey was still very human. That first inning, he walked Jason Worth, who we just saw a moment ago. He got Harper, but then Murphy stayed back on a breaking ball. And in that 3rd inning, there were some hard-hit baseballs, guys.
A lot of hard-hit baseballs. You know, this is a total group effort. Matt Harvey was giving up a lot of hard hits. His outfield failed him on a couple occasions, as did Asdrubal Cabrera, the shortstop, twice, because he also threw that relay throw home. It was a bad night all around, but as Will, you've said, the focus will be on Matt Harvey and nobody else.
And to be fair, not entirely without some justification.
Oh, sure. He got hit hard.
He got hit
Only
really
had 2
hard.
strikeouts.
That ball that Harper hit off of him was 110.
110
was like
that
is not a pitch that you give up when you're right.
Right.
And that's
even to Harper, even to someone as great as Harper. I mean, that is a pitch you leave up. And we saw a couple of times, you know, the Murphy ones. You know, exactly. He left these hanging curveballs. Daniel Murphy knows what to do with those pitches.
That's the thing, is you can blame it on the outfield. 'Cause he could have been out of that inning. Important to remember, he could have been that inning 3-1 rather than 9-1. But he's the one that made it from 3-1. Like, after that happened, he was.
I feel like if his outfield and his infield had picked him up, it only would have just been briefly.
Yeah, it would have been the 4th inning that we're talking about,
exactly.
rather than the 5th inning that we're talking about.
So 2 2/3 innings, the shortest outing of his career. We were telling you just a moment ago that prior to that, it was last year. It was May 23rd at Pittsburgh when he went 4 innings and gave up 7 runs. And prior to that, 5 innings or more every outing. So the drop down to 2 2/3, it's epic. And certainly the fans frustrated with him, no doubt about it. They were disappointed in what they heard and saw tonight. As a matter of fact, I know we also have, there's a peek in completely. That peek in is provided by T-Mobile Greater Coverage, Cam. And now some greater coverage with our roving constructor, or he's not a constructor, he's constructing some great stories. He's a reporter, roving reporter Anthony DiComo out there providing us with greater coverage. Anthony, I guess give us the fan's eye perspective as Mr. Harvey left and headed to the dugout.
Let me put it to you this way. We're a couple innings removed from that now. We're in the 5th inning, and if there's 30,000 people at the park tonight, I would say about 5,000 of them are out in center field on line for food. People are just obviously not very happy. This place got probably the loudest it's been all night when Harvey did walk off the mound there in the 3rd inning, and rightfully so, like you guys were just talking about. I mean, you can put some blame on Asdrubal Cabrera if you want. You can put some blame on Michael Conforto if you want. But this is about Matt Harvey. This isn't just about tonight. This is about the fact that leading up to tonight, he hadn't been himself. And this is almost like, if you're the Mets, you hope it's rock bottom for the guy because you're not sure how much worse it can get right now. So I think there's a lot of frustration in fans right now. I heard a couple people talking about how they wish they had traded him in the offseason and on and on and on. And you just sense that, yeah, just extreme frustration and even a little bit of anger towards Matt Harvey from the Mets fans.
So, Anthony, tell me, you're around the team every day. Is there any chance that he gets a break of some sort, that he doesn't make his next start?
I think if you're the Mets at this point, you have to at least consider it. And this is just me talking because obviously, we haven't gone downstairs and talked to all the principals involved yet, that being Matt Harvey and Terry Collins and Danielle Ellison and the whole front office, who will weigh all of their options. But the fact, especially, that his next start will come against the Nationals, the same team, in Washington, it's hard for me to envision everyone just be like, all right, all systems go, let's send him out there, because something is clearly not right. And whether that's fatigue, whether it's mechanics, whether it's some combination therein, whether it's just Matt Harvey's head, it almost doesn't matter at this point, because he's been so off from what we know he can be. He's been so bad, frankly, for lack of a better word. I think that's the best word. He's just been bad recently. I think you at least have to consider skipping a start, having him rest, and seeing if that does him good to come out, 5 days after that and be a little bit more like himself.
8 strikeouts now from the right arm of Strasburg. Certainly spectacular. Anthony DeComo joining us as part of our T-Mobile Greater coverage.
Anthony, it's Will. You talked a little bit about Harvey's head a little bit. Obviously, he knows what's in the minds of New York fans. I mean, he is the New York bureau chief for the Players Tribune, after all. He certainly has his finger on the news pulse. So when you have, how does he affect, like, clearly he knows the negativity. He feels the energy in that place, particularly as someone who was so beloved. Like, people are still saying the Dark Knights ruling Gotham tonight. What is he like to see on a day-to-day basis after we haven't seen it start this bad? But can he rebound that, or do you think a start off, taking maybe skipping a start will help his head as much as it might even help his arm?
Well, I think Matt Harvey has this reputation, and rightfully so, of being a super confident guy, and he is. To succeed at the level at which he succeeded, and even in his young career, that takes a certain amount of confidence that a lot of people just don't possess. But for Matt Harvey, I think the thing that a lot of fans, a lot of those who aren't around the team don't necessarily realize is he's also hypersensitive to public criticism, what people are saying about him. I think a lot of the times when he's gotten caught up, mixed up in bad coverage, whether it's New York tabloids or nationally, things that he's done, things that he's said that haven't come out right, and people have jumped on him, he's well aware of that stuff in a way that a lot of players aren't. A lot of players just don't read stuff, don't want to know what people are saying about them. Matt Harvey is not that case, and he knows if people rip him, and people will rip him after tonight's start, certainly, he's going to know about it, he's going to feel it. So I do think there's a mental component to his game that maybe goes overlooked sometimes, and I actually thought it was interesting before tonight's game. Terry Collins said, maybe this is what Matt Harvey needs, coming into a pretty high-profile game, Mets Nationals, two teams that are expected to be there at the end. Maybe this is what he needs after facing a string of kind of so-so teams and even some of the bad teams in the National League. Maybe this is what he needs to get back on track and to go back to being, as you said, the Dark Knight. Obviously, that didn't turn out to be the case. Obviously, there are some deeper-rooted issues here that aren't all mental. I think physical plays a large role in it. Like I said, whether it's mechanics or whether it's just simply fatigue for Matt Harvey. But I do think there is a mental aspect. I think of all the aspects of Matt Harvey's game right now, there's no one that you can point to that you can say, hey, this guy's really clicking, because he's struggling in pretty much every facet of the game right now.
Anthony, get out there and Tony Robinson, get him happy, make him smile, sing some Barney songs, man. Get him happy out there. We appreciate it.
I think they're too far gone for me at this point.
All right, we'll talk to you in a bit. Anthony DeComo.
I think that would be unsafe for him to go try to sing to Mets fans right now.
Get him nice and relaxed and having fun. By the way, Alejandro De Aza, any at-bat that you pick up a hit when you've had a year in which you're scuffling a good one, came in hitting just 167. He picked on a breaking ball. He picks up a base hit. De Aza on that roster and getting an opportunity to play, the 32-year-old veteran. And just like that, he is off the base pads, and Granderson replaces him with a fielder's choice ground out.
It's rare you see a ground ball on the right side of the infield where the infielders almost collide.
I saw that. Murphy was standing there waiting for the ball, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes first base.
They're going to have to start calling ground balls. It's been fun to watch as the shift has become more popular to see how much smoother double plays are out of the shift. I think the first year was a little choppy and a little rougher, and I think you're seeing people understand it a lot better now.
We talked to, on the podcast, I believe it was Alex Cora, who was an infielder for many years, future managerial candidate, I would assume. And he said that the hardest thing about the shift for him is that you'd be fielding the ball as an infielder, like a pivot from different angles. You wouldn't expect the shortstop to be right behind you, maybe you'd expect him to be your left, and that was the hardest thing to try to get used to, is catching the ball in that way and then turning around a larger way to throw the ball to first.
David Wright beaten with the fastball in, but you know what? It's base hit. And so Wright hung in there, shoots it out, and it dies in right center field. So his first hit of the day. And everything might not be going his way, and there may be some recovering for him, but he'll take this one.
It's weird because that was inside, but not that in. He just didn't get a lot of extension on that. That's actually a pitch. I feel like maybe David Wright, if healthy, does something very different with that pitch.
I think you're absolutely right. And that's what we're saying. He only swings the pitches inside the strike zone right now, which is great, but it's not exactly what the old David Wright would have done. And
he really wasn't really fisted on that one. That was actually, he got extension on that. He was just slow.
But I think that kind of goes to the conversation we were having before about pitcher versus hitter numbers, right? So Harvey versus Harper, who we were talking about. You can look at, say, David Wright versus any pitcher. The David Wright who exists right now is not the David Wright we saw a couple years ago. Even if it was, say, versus Scherzer, the Max Scherzer right now is not the same guy who was a rookie in Arizona a couple years ago. It's kind of hard to look at that data point and say, oh, that's relevant to the two guys as they are now.
Yeah, they're different human beings.
Very, very different. 5 years ago, David Wright clearly has the upper hand in that matchup. Right now, Max Scherzer obviously has the upper hand.
A couple of buddies that played in Virginia, played amateur ball together, the Highlands Road area.
B.J. Upton on that team.
Upton.
Mark
Justin
Reynolds.
Upton was the bother-em bat boy because he was a younger brother.
Mark Reynolds is on that team, as I remember.
Tidewater traveling team, and you get them all together and they'll still have conversations. And Michael Kadire, the older guy in that group. Justin was the baby, Kadire was the older guy. I believe I'm saying it right, in the Highland Roads area.
I guarantee you all those guys still call him BJ.
Oh, absolutely.
They are not calling him Melvin Jr.
Elevated the fastball. Looks like his defense is there for him. He beat him with the fastball up. Shoots it to the left side. Conforto is retired as Rendon puts it away and steps into the dugout. MLB Plus, our StatCast broadcast. If you're joining us, this is fun tonight, and we'll explain to you, what is StatCast?
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with two distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
Welcome back to MLB Plus. I'm Ashley Chavez. Keep in touch with us during the game by using the hashtag MLB Plus and join in on the conversation. Now let's take a look at some of your tweets. The first one, I'm super happy to announce we have gone international again. Wait for that to come up real quick. This one's from Ricardo Porto. He says, hashtag MLB Plus, great feeling to watch and read the game on another level. Greetings from Rio. So happy you're watching, Ricardo. Please make sure to tune in week after week because we have a lot more fun things going on. This one's from Mark Carrig. He says, Conforto can't glove it. Rendon rocks it at 106 miles per hour. Matt Harvey is getting rocked. Yeah, it's been a rough one for them. And lastly, from Darren W., Bryce Harper's throw to hold a runner at third, 95.3 miles per hour, hashtag canon. Even though, Mike, you were saying that he's kind of average, right, in the outfield?
I can tell you that that was his hardest throw of the entire season, which was very cool. Last year he hit 96 a couple of times. This year he'd only hit 93, so that's his hardest throw of 2016, so I think that's pretty cool.
Nice. Guys, what do you think about my crown?
I was going to say, I really don't like how he addressed our queen.
I apologize.
There was not remember where you are, who you're talking to, and the deference that you must show.
Apologies, Your Majesty.
Oh, I accept. I'm really getting ahead of myself right now, but I thought at the rate I'm moving up, might as well start,
I'm not sure where you go from here. There's got to be a certain limit.
That's fine.
There is no limit.
You elevated yourself.
I did it. It's going to my head. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
She's a tyrant.
I know.
But that can't happen. Hey, by the way, nice stuff. We like to elevate you, though. We like to raise you up.
I'm sorry.
And put you on the pedestal. If you build the pedestal yourself and sit on it, it doesn't feel as good, does it?
I trust in your creativity. I expect something new next
That was pretty creative. I didn't bring a hat. Thank you, Ashley.
Of course.
Feels good to be the queen, whether you make yourself the queen, someone else does.
Yeah, absolutely. Royalty is royalty. Here's royalty in the batter's box. Antonio Bastardo comes on. The left-hander goes to work. We clean a few more out of that bullpen. The 30-year-old signed with the Phillies organization as a free agent out of the Dominican Republic in 2005. And his best year in Philly in 13.
I'm not sure how closely you watched the game last night, but Bastardo faced Bryce Harper last night. Harper, I think, walked every single time except he struck out once against Bastardo. 3 pitches. Bastardo busted him up high every single time and went whiff, foul ball, and whiff. And that's kind of becoming a thing for Harper, is that pitchers have kind of discovered he's got this maybe a hole high in the strike zone that he is having trouble catching up to. And that is exactly what Bastardo is trying to do. And so far, 2 of these 4 pitches have been high.
And of course, that's a scary thing to do.
You got one shot at it, and he made it. One shot. The shift was on. David Wright made that barehanded play and got Bryce Harper.
Yeah, it's a scary thing to throw high, even if he is struggling to Bryce Harper, because you make a mistake, even for someone like Harper.
It would go very, very far.
It's troublesome. That's not the pitch Harper was expecting.
No. Nice play by Wright, though. We've talked a lot about his physical condition, and that was a nice pitch. Looked almost like a slider, I think.
Yeah, a secondary pitch because he was way out in front of it. Daniel Murphy goes to Hacken.
You talked about this on your podcast with how it was unusual for Sandy Alderson to pay for a reliever like this. He went out and spent for Bastardo this year, which is generally outside of his philosophy.
You're absolutely right. And, the Mets bullpen's actually been outstanding. The second best ERA in baseball coming into the game, the first best fielding independent pitching. Really, really good overall.
Something that was thought to be potentially be a weakness coming in.
Right, and you're right. Bastardo was the guy that went out and got. Bastardo, I think, is a little bit underrated. He strikes out a ton of guys. 409 strikeouts and 333 career innings. Problem is he's always had control issues, a lot of walks. But he's a lefty killer. Lefties 173, 273, 310 against him. And he's been around for a while, so he's a really valuable guy to have. I think a little bit underrated, but you're right. It's not like the Mets to go out and pay for a reliever. And I'm interested to see, they've had a good bullpen, but I feel like they could add somebody at the deadline. I don't know who, but, if you think about it, Familia is outstanding in the back end. Reed and Robles and Bastardo, it's a pretty good trio. You add one more guy to that, all of a sudden you got something there.
Maybe there's a crosstown trade come July, perhaps.
Oh.
Theoretically speaking.
Start off fastball, slider, changeup. Fastball about 92 miles an hour this year, average velocity. He's one of those fastballs missing high, but he's almost exclusively fastball, isn't he? I mean, he throws a ton of. I love when a pitcher believes in his first pitch that much.
Yeah, 3/4 fastballs, and you know, it's got a high spin. It's 2,300 and change, which is it's a good spin rate for a fastball, especially coming from the left side. And you know, he throws it hard enough that when he doesn't miss like that, he's been a really valuable guy.
He's pitching to Zimmerman like he doesn't face right-handers very often.
You know, he doesn't. He's not necessarily a strict loogie, but you know, that's what he exists for, is to get lefties out. And in a game like this, obviously, he's going to get outs.
He exists to get everybody home.
3.56 ERA, you talked about it. Those 11 strikeouts per 9. Really high K rate.
You know, it's only the sixth. The Mets are really going to have to piece this together because they couldn't get a lot of length out of Logan Brett. Because he pitched last night, you know, he had the 12th pitch or whatever it was at bat against Harper. They're really going to have to get an inning out of a bunch of guys, and you know they're going to kind of eat up a lot of the bullpen tonight.
Yeah, that 4th inning was pretty brutal for him, even though he didn't give up any runs.
Right.
It really knocked him out.
We are on track for a position player pitching tonight, unless the offense really shows up here. And I can't tell you how excited I am.
Oh, this is to get an MLB Plus game with a non-pitcher pitcher.
So it'd have to be Campbell, right? So on the bench now they have Rivera, and it's not going to be their backup catcher. And Lagares, you know, maybe, but that seems unlikely.
Why push that?
It could be someone.
Yeah, that's got to be a no.
Yeah.
You know, is someone on the field already? It's not going to be like Lucas Duda. It's
not going to be the catcher, right?
It's got to be Eric Campbell.
All right, Campbell, be ready.
No balls and 2 strikes to count on Rendon. Doubled in a pair back in the 3rd inning, singled in the 4th inning, grounded out to short. He's got 5 hits and 9 at-bats in this series.
I'm starting to feel Eric Campbell.
You like Eric Campbell?
I'm starting to feel.
On the mound or just in general?
Oh, I'm sure he's a friendly chap, but tonight it's all about the mound. This is our narrative moving forward to the rest of this game to see if we're going to see Campbell. We're going to need this. We might need this half inning to go a little bit longer. They're not going to put him at starter too. Feels like he's not. He doesn't feel like it.
He threw 24 pitches last night.
Yeah, so he's not going to it.
I would be surprised. They got 14 now. I would be very surprised if he throws 2 innings.
I feel like Baseball Prospectus did a piece. Sam Miller might have done it last year of trying to figure out who the emergency pitcher was for all Major League Baseball teams. And then I think also who the absolute person you, no question, would not see.
Would never ever. I want to know who the emergency catcher is. First.
Yes. Well, is it Harper for the, he played there? No, they're not going to.
Rocket shot, base hit left field. Rendon with a single. A couple of runners on now for Washington. Mike, I want to take you back to Bryce Harper and that little roller he hit earlier in the inning that David Wright made the play on, and he was certainly smelling a base hit. So he runs top speed at 19.37, 38 miles an hour. What does that mean?
It's pretty good, but it's not elite. You know, the best guys get to the top speed of 22-ish miles an hour. So 19, you know, it's good, but it's not outstanding. But I think when I look at that play, I think about David Wright, because he's had so many issues, and he was actually able to get over there and make a nice throw. So, you know, that's good, but I think that if we'd seen a higher top speed, we might have actually seen a base hit there.
His exchange, Wright, 0.567 seconds. What does that mean?
Oh, an exchange means the time between getting the ball and getting it out of your hands. So literally, from the time he touched it to the time he let it go is a half a second. And I think, as I remember seeing it, he barehanded it, because that's a lot quicker exchange than usual. He didn't really have to get it out of his glove. He just picked it up and got rid of it. So that's pretty good. And I think that really is a big part of why he was able to get that out.
So we take a look at some of the exciting moments in this game, and we take a look at this StatCast must-see, and we focus must-see on Daniel Murphy.
And it brings up the former Met
Daniel Murphy hearing the smattering of boos. The pitch swung on, hit high in the air to right center field. Cespedes going back, way back. This one has some carry. Going, and gone. Goodbye. Over the wall to the right of the 408 marker, just to right center field. A 2-run homer for Daniel Murphy. It's his 6th of the year.
The 0-2, Worth is running, and the pitch lifted in the air to deep right center. Going back is Cespedes at the track near the wall. It's gone. Daniel Murphy hits one out over the wall in right center field between the 380 and the 408 mark for Murph, his 6th home run of the year. And in his first plate appearance against his former teammate Matt Harvey, Daniel Murphy hits a 2-run first inning homer, and it's 2-0 Washington.
The Mets' 13th round pick in 2006. This is what he has done in this series, gentlemen, against his old club.
This gets him back up to 400, right? He's hitting 400 now. It's the middle of May. He's still hitting 400. I'm going to guess he's not going to keep that up all season long. But the fact is, we're getting pretty far into the season now.
Yeah, I mean, this is not just him being excited to play against his own team. This is what he has been doing for, as you said, for about a calendar year now. It's who Daniel... 400 hitters, maybe not who he is, but it is definitely not the Daniel Murphy we thought we.
Here, I can tell you this. So we like to use weighted runs created plus slot. It's better than batting average because it gives you credit for extra base hits, and it allows you to look at 100 being league average. Daniel Murphy right now, including today's game, 183, 83 percentage points better than league average, 2nd best in all of baseball, behind Jose Altuve of all people. But it goes to show you Daniel Murphy has been outstanding this year.
And we take a peek at that man who's been outstanding with our T-Mobile greater coverage camera, showing us the man who's dominating.
I mean, it's funny.
Weighted runs created plus.
It's funny how much of a difference. I know we brought this up earlier, but that we're going to be talking about that game where Harper walked 6 times against the Cubs all year, and it does feel like a pinpoint because after that, the reason he did that was because Zimmerman was on deck and Zimmerman was struggling. Not long after that was when Murphy got moved to that 4th spot. And listen, Harper's still going to get his walks, but now with Murphy hitting the way he is, that lengthens the whole lineup and turns the Nationals into a pretty scary offensive team.
Now I wonder we talked about this a little earlier. I think they're going to replace Danny Espinosa with Trey Turner soon because Espinosa has been struggling really hard. Trey Turner in AAA has been outstanding. 322 batting average, 383 and 477 in AAA, 14 for 14 in stolen base attempts. Really, really good. Now he got some service time last year. He came up in September, and so I think that's why they're holding him down. If they wait until May 30th, which is not that far away, then they can push his free agency back by a year.
Is he the resolution to their leadoff problems?
I don't know if they would stick him in there right away, but
eventually,
yeah. If he comes up and he's able to even be competent, he doesn't have to be outstanding. Now the question is, the Nationals are winning, right? Do you fall under the it ain't broke, so don't fix it? That might be their issue.
It seems potentially Baker's strategy on that too. It seems in the past we've seen that kind of leadership from him.
But I like the idea. You call up Turner, you put him at shortstop. Espinosa probably replaces Steven Drew. Espinosa is a better fielder than Steven Drew. Steven Drew hasn't hit the ball in years, so you easily replace him. It improves your defense, and I think that strengthens you all right.
9-1 the score. Strasburg approaching 100 pitches and maybe a tiny bit of fatigue as his body spun off, arm drag behind. He left that slider up in the zone to Cespedes, who singled and scored in the 2nd inning and struck out looking in the 4th inning.
I think if you're the Nationals, you're very happy if you get Strasburg through this inning. Going to get 100 pitches here soon. No need to push it, but if you give you 6 innings, you don't have to destroy your bullpen. Probably be it for him.
Came right back with a really good fastball, though, at 97, knee-high away.
And of course, this is the question. This was the fear about that contract. Was he still throwing 200 innings? But it feels if you can get 6 out of him, there's no reason to push him past that. He's got a streak of a lot of 6-inning games in a row. That feels eventually you're going to push him, but definitely tonight's not the night.
Yusmeiro Petit may be your choice there, a guy you can stretch out.
The thing about the contract that was so interesting is a lot of it's deferred, right? And I think people just report the dollar figure and say, oh, well, that's a lot of money. Kind of like with shirts, because a lot of it was deferred. And that's how he got over $200 million. But, a dollar in the future is less valuable than a dollar today. Just the way of the world, inflation goes up and the dollar is less valuable. So when you actually kind of look at it, what the money is expected to be worth, it's not $175 million. It's actually more like $135 million. They're talking about purchasing power. And that's a pretty good deal for the Nationals. And I understand it. He's already had a Tommy John surgery, so that increases his risk. But it's basically what Justin Verlander and Felix Hernandez got 3 years ago without the benefit of inflation. So I think it's a good deal for both sides.
And it speaks to, as he said at his press conference, his comfort with the organization, in part resulting from what they did for him, that they were so disappointed, was so criticized for 4 years ago.
Right, because if he'd made it to free agency, this free agent market is just brutal. He would have made a lot more than that, but he would also be carrying on some amount of risk of getting through the remainder of the season healthy.
Quickly, gentlemen, interesting, and we may get back to it if they're able to dig it up. It's just ball 4, right? So the pitch just a moment ago to Cespedes, and this is right in your alley, Mike, 95.4 miles an hour, 0.5. His extension was nearly 7.5, and the perceived velocity was more than 2 miles an hour higher, more than 2. So it was nearly strike 3. It was right at the knees.
So that sounds good. It actually worries me a little bit because 7.5 is a lot higher than usual.
Okay. Why would it worry you?
Because anything, you see a guy over 100 pitches, you worry about fatigue, you worry about him changing his arms a lot. This is how people get hurt. Right?
Sure.
So if all of a sudden he has changed his motion a little bit because he's tired, maybe his arm sounds lower, he's out in front a little bit more. I'm not saying, I didn't see that, I don't remember what the pitch looked like, so it's not necessarily true, but if we have that number, that's a difference for him. And even though that pitch may have been more effective for it, it's something that would concern me a little bit as he gets deep into this game.
Yeah, the issue is not so much the number of the extension, that it's different than all the other extensions.
Right. Yeah. 7.44 is what I see right here. So
so his average coming into the game, 6.8.
Yeah. So he's doing something different, and perhaps just because he's tiring, you're right, that's how you get hurt. Which is exactly what Nationals fans want to hear us say.
Yeah, right.
No, but that's why I brought it up. That's why we do this.
Then it makes you wonder whether it's worth it for him to just try to get 6 innings here.
I'd also be
if he's already strained.
If I had a minute to actually look at all the pitches. Was that a one-time pitch that he got out in front of it on that one, or has this been kind of increasing as the game goes on? I mean, he's over 100 pitches in the 6th inning, and he's only given up 1 run. That says something about the way he's gone through the game tonight.
Pitch before that, 6.91. Before that, 6.71. 6.92 before that. 7.04 before that. Sorry to bore you.
No, not at all. I was just watching him go up the ladder on Lucas Duda there, which is a swing I imagine Lucas would prefer to have back.
But that's the thing. That's not like a terrific pitch that he just
no.
did. And so it's to me, I'm glad you brought that up, Dan, because I think that is a fascinating, that's something you can use with this data. It's not so much just what does it mean, that extension of perceived velocity. It means you can see when someone's doing something different. You can see when they're changing their delivery a little bit. And with someone like Strasburg, who has been so, it makes you realize too how much pitch counts and innings limits are so vague in general and over the idea that you can learn more from that. He's doing something different. We can quantify that he's doing something different.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can't really see it with your eyes necessarily. That's where the numbers help. And what's interesting as we see him go up the ladder there on Duda is we are still learning what difference is statistically significant. Is this difference we saw, is that a big deal? We're not really sure yet. We're still kind of trying to figure that out. But it seems to me like it's a big enough number that it's notable enough for it to stand out.
We'll have our StatCast replay in just a moment of that same strikeout we saw. As that one is lifted up and into the seats. Powered by Amazon Web Services. Here it is.
Yeah, there's another 7-foot extension. So it seems like maybe that's happening not on just that one pitch, but more and more as the game goes on. Even if I didn't already think he was going to be out this inning, he certainly will be.
Arm angle a little lower, and maybe he tells himself, you're right, it is different, doesn't mean it's going to lead to an injury, but I think he may tell himself, being never at that level, but an old minor league pitcher myself, I'm just going to reach out a little more to that catcher's mitt. I'm fatigued, maybe try and emphasize just to get over my left knee. I got to get over my left knee. I can feel it. All right, my goodness, just he looks okay to me.
Yeah, so here we are talking about is he straining his? So he got his extension back down on that one, but is he straining? He looks like he's wearing it. He's got 2 strikeouts in a row and is about to cruise through the city and get back out.
Yeah, here we are trying to find reasons to worry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is what we've always done with him. This is what we've always done with Strasburg.
I just asked you what it meant. Now I'm not worrying. It just seemed different.
Hey, you got us off on this topic, which I think was a good thing to talk about. But yeah, he looks. I mean, for what it's worth, he looks fine. He's of the pitchers that people are going to be talking about tonight. It's not going to be him.
Yeah, there the perceived velocity is just a touch above the actual release at 96.65 miles an hour in that strikeout. Pitch number, well over 100, 110. He's got 10 strikeouts now. His extension was 6.6 on that one. You see the definition of perceived velocity if you're just joining us on MLB Plus. And the 6th inning as part of MLB Plus, presented by T-Mobile.
This is Strasburg's 4th game this season where he has 10 strikeouts or more. Only Clayton Kershaw's more than that. And sometimes, I think I mentioned this before, people don't always talk about Strasburg in that kind of upper echelon of aces. You know, I wouldn't put him top 5. That's probably, you know, Kershaw, Sale, Arrieta, maybe Syndergaard, but one of the top 10 pitchers in baseball, starting pitchers, yeah, I think he's got a good case to make there.
I think they need to see the 200 innings. I think that's what they're waiting for. And now they've signed the contract. They don't have to, there's no kid gloves anymore. He's going to get the opportunity to do that this year.
StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services. There it is.
So 6.6, that's down almost a foot from the one you mentioned earlier. So that concerns me a little bit, you know, as we talked about, something is different.
You're concerned again?
No, you're the same amount of concern.
Okay.
Wow, he is.
That doesn't concern me. Got to be some metrics at some point on that play, right?
Absolutely. That was a nice play by Espinosa. That's what he's going to point to when they start talking about Trey Turner.
And that is it, obviously.
We're certainly glad you joined us, and around Major League Baseball, other stuff going on. Let's take a look at our FastCast replay, and let's start things. Seattle-Baltimore. Mariners already up 2-1. Adam Lynn taking Ty Wilson deep for his 3rd home run of the season. M's up 5-1. They would go on to win by a score of 7-2. 3rd home run of the year for Adam. Jonas Martin also hit his 7th home run of the year. Cubs, Brew Crew, Shadows, no fun. Game tied 2-2. Neuenhuis. Jason Hamill takes him yard. 2nd home run of the season. Brewers up 4-2. They go on to win it by a score of 5-3. Pittsburgh score already 3-0 Bucks. Gregory Polanco, like Colton Yevich. He took him yard in the 2nd inning. 5th home run of the season. Bucks 5-0 lead. Currently up 8-2. And we'll check a look at that score. 8-2 in that one. Cincy and Indians already leading 4-2 over the Reds. Carlos Santana. He goes deep. A 2-run blast. 6-2 lead. 7th home run of the season. 7-2 is the score now. Colorado at St. Louis. Cardinals taking on the Rockies. Game tied in the bottom of the 4th. Aledmus Diaz, RBI single. John Gray. Redbirds up 7-6. Brandon Moss scores, I should say. The Cardinals would tack on another 3 runs in the inning and now lead it by a score of 10-6. And here it is all Washington. All Washington, 9-1. Very nice play over the shoulder, Danny Espinosa, and probably the end of the night as we talked about for Steven Strasburg. Into the spot. Nice. Slid onto his backside over the shoulder, and a nice play there by Danny Espinosa.
And balls like that with a combination of exit velocity, launch angle, usually fall for a hit about 63% of the time. So unfortunate for the hitter that Espinosa was there.
Digging in now and ready to go as we move into the top half of inning number 7.
And Bastardo's back.
I guess we were wrong about that. So Bastardo threw 24 pitches last night, 17 pitches in the 1st inning.
That's a lot of pitches in 2 days.
A lot of pitches for him.
So chitter Danny Espinosa. 2 for 20 this year as a right-handed hitter.
It's funny because, you know, tomorrow the Mets have Steven Matz going, who has had some also concerns a little bit health-wise of late. They may need some more innings tomorrow. They're facing the Brewers, to be fair, but this is not the way they wanted this game.
Your anti-Brewer bias shines through once again.
I just, you know, Prince Fielder's not walking through that door. Cecil Cooper's not walking through that door.
Get on the Brewers, huh? Just out of nowhere?
Really? What the
Get
Brewers
back
ever
to the
do to you?
game. What, are you just killing the Brew Crew?
Sorry.
You leave Robin Yount and Mark Brohard alone. 2-1 the count.
We just saw highlights of some of the other games, and I have to say I was dismayed at the Cleveland-Cincinnati game because the pitcher for Cincinnati who gave up the home run that we saw, Caleb Cotham, a recent guest on the Statcast podcast, a really interesting guy. He's actually interested in his spin rate and the data and working out in kind of new and unique ways to keep his arm healthy in the right way. Really enjoyed talking to him. Unfortunately, he's part of a bullpen that is, let's say, underperforming right now.
But it's not it's not the analytics fault. He's learning more.
Yeah, well, there's execution issues, I think.
2-2 the count, 9-1 is the score. A 5-run third inning, an explosive third inning, part of the story for Washington. Offensively, the Mets outfield let him down. Matt Harvey let him down. As Espinosa goes down on strikes, Harvey had a really tough night tonight. And he had struck out his last 2 at-bats. He had 2 singles in the second and the third.
Another terrific outing for the Mets bullpen, by the way. We've talked about that a lot.
Steven Strasburg's hitting here.
So here's what's going to happen. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here. Arguably my least favorite managerial move. He's going to stay in. One guy's going to get on base, and they're going to yank him. Unless you think this is just practice hitting, because he's well over 100 pitches at this point.
Like even if he has a good inning next inning, and it's going to be 10, 15 pitches, we're now up to like what 130 at that point.
Do you think he hits here and still doesn't come out?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I think it's possible.
Yes.
I would be that baffled by
just for hitting practice.
I'm not sure of the reason.
Now the Nationals are one of the few teams we've seen on this show that does not have an insanely short bench. They do actually have 5 bench players right now. And it's not like they couldn't use a pinch hitter here.
Oliver Perez is throwing in the bullpen. Another guy Mets fans will be very happy to see. Oliver Perez. Back in Flushing.
One of the very first games I attended after moving to New York was Oliver Perez contributing to that meltdown down the stretch.
Oh, yes.
In 2006, I believe.
I saw Oliver Perez start against Randy Johnson when Perez was the excellent starter for the Pirates and the one that everyone was so excited about. And they were both tall left-handers. And here's the next Randy Johnson. And it did not quite go down that way.
The younger big unit, the future, the fastball, the slider, the break-off, tough pitch to deal with. Steven, by the way, 6 innings, 6 hits, 1 run earned, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts, 113 pitches.
I'm not really sure that we can emphasize enough how weird this is.
Right.
That he's hitting right here. Like, would it be? I'm not sure if it'd be weirder if he then does pitch or doesn't pitch, but it's just weird nonetheless.
I mean, he looked like he was ready to get through that inning and be done. Like even Strasburg looked like he was ready to be finished there. So I have to say, you're right. Both of them are weird. It's weirder if he goes back out.
In some sense, I appreciate Dusty Baker giving us something weird to talk about
in a 9-1 game, yes. But you're right. They've got bench guys. There's plenty of guys there. They've got right-handed hitters.
Chris Heisey or somebody's got to be sitting on the bench going, what does it take?
He must have been in the bathroom or something.
Nice at bat on him, I'll tell you that. For Bastardo. Would love to get rid of Steven Strasburg. And he can't.
4 straight fouls in this at bat, which is it's both pretty good for Strasburg, but I also wonder what that says about Bastardo, who we talked about throwing a lot of pitches last night and tonight. You can't put away the opposing pitcher. That's where you know things might be an issue.
He's thrown 42 pitches now in 2 days and still only got 1 out in this inning. I feel like you're not going to see Bastardo for a couple of days, and you may need him.
We can't lose track, too, since this at bat will go on long enough to tell Steven's life story. We can't lose track of who he was when he came to college, how out of shape he was, how he dropped 25 pounds his first couple of years. And his pitching coach challenged him and said that scouts thought he was unfocused and undisciplined and lacked the ability to take care of himself. And he took it really personal. I mean, he really, really did. And finally, this at-bat comes to an end. We'll get an explanation as to why. But as we watch, I think, his night come to an end here, I think we move forward to the adult that is Steven Strasburg and all the money and all the domination. But the young man who kind of could have gone 1 or 2 ways his freshman year of college, at a really fun party school to have a great time like San Diego State. This is the work that he did tonight. And he chose the way of discipline probably for one of the first times in his life.
Yeah, I remember reading a story about that at the time, and I can't remember who the scout was, unfortunately, but the scout was asked, like, how did you all miss this guy coming out of high school? This is about when he's going to be the #1 draft pick out of college. And the scout's like, we didn't miss anything. There was nothing to miss. Like, he had an okay arm, but he was overweight. He didn't really have a lot of success. There was no reason to draft him at that time, and you're right. And he goes to college, plays under Tony Gwynn.
Tony Gwynn, I was going to say. Yeah,
Tony Gwynn really kind of, gave him some nice life experience and taught him that, there's a lot more to pitching than just going out there and throwing the ball, and turned him into the #1 overall pick and one of the best starters in baseball.
Yeah, he was dismayed that he was unable to be at Tony Gwynn's funeral, and he was thrilled that so many were able to represent and just the way that it worked out in his life. He talks a lot about the leadership of Tony Gwynn, and when he grew up in San Diego. There's pictures of him as a young man with the wristbands with Tony Gwynn on them and the T-shirt with Tony Gwynn on them. So Gwynn had a huge impact on his life. But there was that pitching coach, Rusty Filter, that told him it was kind of a joke and he wasn't taking good care of himself. I think Rusty did a nice job.
I bet Strasburg is going to be joining the rest of us in San Diego this July at the All-Star game because he absolutely deserves it.
No, there's no doubt that he deserves it.
There they go. He's not coming back in. He's not coming back in.
All right, so he's done for tonight.
A little hitting practice for Steven Strasburg tonight.
Yeah, that's all it was, just an interesting discussion. But this year just goes on, guys. I mean, when you think about, who he is this year, you just even look at his last couple of starts and the work that he has done. That's the work that he has done tonight. Last time out, Miami, 6 innings, 3 runs, 7 strikeouts. A couple starts ago, 11 strikeouts against Detroit. Really good at KC before that. He now has gone 6 or more innings in every start. He now has given up 3 runs or less in 7 of his 9 starts. The cynic thinks maybe, there might be something that tweaks him and he sits down for a little while. That's what the cynic would say. The cynic's really not welcome in the story this year anyway.
They're taking the reins off. Like, he's going to be able to go. This was what, they talked about in that press conference when they signed him, how he's gonna pitch now. Like, there's no more rules. There's no more rein him in. We paid for him and he's gonna go. And right now he looks like the guy's gonna be able to handle it.
I'm gonna put you both guys on the spot right now. Is there a team in baseball that's got a better 1-2 than Scherzer Strasburg? Now, before the season, you might have said the Mets. You could probably throw the White Sox in that conversation, maybe. But is there a team that's got a better 1-2? I don't know that there is.
You got to have a lot of faith in Lester if you're gonna do that for the Cubs. I wouldn't say so. No.
Jamal Collier, that's a good way to take this conversation. I'll take it in a different direction. The guys are talking about a better 1-2 when you talk about Scherzer and Strasburg. Tell me quickly just what you have garnered on their relationship. I mean, the two of these guys are, you have one who's a little bit older, certainly, and not that much older, but what's the relationship like between these two? I think these guys bring up a great subject. They probably push one another.
Definitely, and they're 2 different pitchers. Or 2 different guys, as a matter of fact, as necessarily pitchers. Scherzer is the outgoing. He is the guy who likes to have fun and do things in between starts. And Strasburg is a very more serious, low-key, private kind of person. It's an interesting dynamic between them. And then when you talk about Scherzer, he is trying to find every advantage or everything he can find to try to make sure it's pushing him and he can compete against. So the guy's going to be 1-2 in his rotation for a while now, at least for the next couple of years, 3 years, the extension with Strasburg. Interesting dynamic to see how those 2 guys are going to work at the top of this rotation.
Jamal, it's Mike. I have to ask you, we started the show off talking a lot about how Steven Strasburg is throwing this pitch. He doesn't want to call a slider. And I remember I asked you about it in April. I'm like, can you go talk to him, find out from me, is he throwing a slider? And he kind of deferred and said, no, not really. That was about 6 weeks ago. Is he being more honest? Is he telling you a different story about it now?
He is. I don't think he's ever necessarily named the pitch as far as a slider or a cutter, but he has acknowledged its existence. He has acknowledged that what it allows him to do, and some of the different things that it opens up for him as far as gives another side of the plate that he can attack. It just gives hitters, I should say, one more thing to keep in their mind that this guy has in his arsenal. And we've seen obviously it pay off so far because he's off to the best start of his career.
Hi, Will. Jamal, it's Will. Just one quick thing. We just had a whole discussion. We actually had a brief moment of horror that Strasburg was going to come back out for that inning. Why did he bat there? They've got tons of pinch hitters. Is that something that Baker does? Is just get them an extra?
And you don't need to save
some swings
later either. It was a little odd to me, and I looked at the pitch count and said, okay, he's up for 100 pitches, and the first 100 pitches isn't a magic thing anyway, but. No reason for him to be out there in a 9-1 game to pitch again. We've seen this a couple times with Dusty. I have, at least throughout this year, where he has let a pitcher hit even though when he's coming out the game. And granted, the Nationals pitchers have handled the bat pretty well, and Joe Ross and Strasburg and even Scherzer to an extent. But just odd that, he allows him to hit there when he's not saving pinch hitters for later in this game because this is a 9-1 blowout. You think you want to get some of these guys maybe an extra at bat for Stephen Drew or for Clint Robinson, guys who don't play every day.
34-year-old Oliver Perez on the mound for the Nationals. Jamal Collier in this conversation with us and at the ballpark. How much does Trey Turner come up in conversations?
I bet you Nationals fans wish he came up a little bit more in conversations right now. It's interesting because on one hand you do have the service time issue, and the Nationals have to wait until about May 30th before they call him up and they get an extra year. But on the other hand, I'm not sure how much that really plays a role in the reason that they have not called him up yet. Just because they did it last year and they had him up last September, and they were that concerned about service time, then why would they have wasted those days essentially last September when the race was all but over at that point? It's definitely something that if Espinoza continues to not be effective at the plate and Trey Turner continues to light it up in the minors, that it's going to be harder to justify the fact that this guy is not being called up and they're continuing to start Espinoza every day.
Jamal, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Jamal Collier joining us. Lagares finds one that he likes, and he crushes it to left, but as he has done so many times to others, there's an outfielder there to make a play on a well-struck baseball. Lagares, you hate to see him only with a bat in his hands because he's oh so good with the glove. StatCast from last night, powered by Amazon Web Services. The catch. And here it is.
Yeah, it's an interesting route he takes, right? Obviously, he makes the play. That's what's most important. But, the route efficiency on that, probably not going to be close to 100 because he takes a little bit of a curving route towards it. Now, I think the ball tailed back a little bit, so he kind of made the best of it that he could. But, really nice play all around.
Yeah, when we were on an earlier podcast, we were talking to Fernando about how, a lot of times, obviously that's an incredible play, but it's made an incredible play from kind of a roundabout route in a lot of ways. And so, Fernando was talking about how a lot of times what looks like a great play and is athletically a great play is actually a correction to a mistake that would happen earlier. And I think you see that a little bit. That's not to take away from the athleticism of that play, but there was an easier route to that ball that he didn't take.
We have reached the late spring training part of the game here because a whole bunch of substitutions for that. Dusty Baker let Strasburg hit and then completely emptied out his bench.
This is get the walk-ons in.
Clint Robinson's playing first. Stephen Drew's playing third. I think I saw Revere had moved over to left, so Michael A. Taylor's playing center field.
Everybody plays an inning. This is T-ball rules.
Yeah,
Everybody's getting in today. But will we see Campbell? I don't think so. I think the second best Stardo inning may have ruined seeing Campbell for us.
I think you're right. There's really only 6 outs left that they need to get. Sadly.
I know.
Taylor's in there. Heisey is in there. Robinson's in there. Strikeout. By the way, Matt Harvey, according to Elias Sports, has not recorded an out in the 7th inning in his last 10 regular season starts, 9 this season, along with his last one of the last year. The last Mets pitcher to go 10 straight starts with 6 or fewer innings was the man who just pitched, Oliver Perez, in 2008 and 2009.
That is a comparison Mets fans will love to hear. Oliver Perez and Matt Harvey in the same sentence.
I thought you'd like that.
Yeah.
I thought you'd like it. You guys will like this as well. Here is this week's edition of our very best in StatCast.
Ozuna cracks one, left field, and deep, and gone. Man, that's 15 rows up.
Give me the velocity on that. What was that? That was impressive. 2-0 fastball. Watch this, folks. Right down the middle, turns on it.
111 miles an hour, 447 feet, the early return.
Wow.
In the air to right field, another tough one down the line. Rickett going over in the corner, jumps up and makes the catch. What a play! 2 times he has done that to Iannetta. That one double the difficulty as Joey Rickett disappeared into the corner up against the wall and hauled it in.
And recently that has changed. Frazier at third, fair ball, could be 3. My goodness, they did it again. For the second time this year, the Sox turn triple play. Throw those odds out the window. First team since 2007 to turn 2 triple plays in 1 year.
So it's fun to hear the calls, right? Guys are at the ball yard, and they don't have access to the yet on a fluid basis, but yet you hear game callers that are out there daily on radio saying, I need to know the exit velocity of that hit. I love hearing that call.
You know, they can get it. MLB Game Day, our app, you can get the exit velocities on a lot of these hits. You just have to go under the feed tab, which a lot of people don't know about yet because they always ask me about it, and I always point them there, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe it's there. That's so cool.
By the way, peeking into the ballpark and doing so. T-Mobile providing greater coverage of tonight's game with our camera down the right field line in the corner. It takes a great look at leads. And the bad news for the New York Mets is there's been some jogging going on around the bases and some extra base hits, and leads really haven't made a huge difference. But we love the shot and the look in. T-Mobile, greater coverage, Cam.
Yeah, so definitely some Nats bench guys getting some swings tonight, and good for them.
That was, I mean, Dusty Baker just kind of right back at us for giving Steven Strasburg that at bat. His son Darren's about to get in there and hit as well.
We know he likes to get on the field.
Can't judge him. This is Michael Taylor, 25-year-old Michael Taylor, and certainly a really good athlete, young man out of South Florida, Washington 6th-round pick in 2009. Struck out a bunch last year, certainly.
He simultaneously, and I know how weird this is going to sound, cannot hit and really, really can hit, right? He, for his career, 221, 274, 349.
Not impressive.
Not so great. 65 weighted runs created plus. It's considerably below average. But he also has the second longest home run of the entire StatCast era, 493 feet last year, right behind Chris Bryant, 495. Now, if you look at that ball, obviously he crushed it. Obviously, launching was perfect. It was also at Coors Field, which did not hurt. I'm sure that added a little bit extra distance to it. But when you think about all the guys who'd be in the top 2 of a home run distance, he is not the first one that would come to mind.
Do you see his average exit velocity being impressive, or is this just the ball he squared up just perfect?
Sometimes things just come together perfectly in the perfect ballpark, and that's exactly what happened.
The pitcher is Jerry Blevins, the southpaw out of Dayton, and a longtime major leaguer with Washington, and the New York Mets.
We talked earlier that the Nets bullpen's been really, really good, right? And I think we have the data to support it. Number 2 in ERA, number 1 in fielding independent pitching, and that was before the night. And you know, they've actually added a couple of scoreless innings here.
It hasn't necessarily been high leverage,
well,
but
no,
they did the job.
You know, you got to do what comes along. Jerry Blevins.
You fight the war that you're in, not the one that you want.
Jerry Blevins, who missed most of last year's run because he fell off a curb and broke his arm, as I remember, comes into the game 12 strikeouts in 10 innings. I mean, everybody in the bullpen's really been effective.
This is Chris Heisey. He's a great story, his journey to the major leagues and the amount of time he's put in the major leagues. Good changeup to Heisey, hits the outside corner.
Given the idea of the Mets bullpen, you know, this was, you know, one of the arguments that people have made against doing what the Yankees did, which is like stack up your bullpen in a lot of ways. Is, you know, traditionally you've seen people, like Kevin Towers is always known for this, piecing together bullpens in a lot of ways, and that's kind of what the Mets have done here. This was thought as a weakness coming into the season. A lot of people you would not expect to have stepped up like this have done that. When you have a team like the Yankees, obviously the Yankees have really good relievers, but they've spent heavily for those guys, and now they're not able to get them leads anyway.
Right. So we just saw the Mets number 1 in fielding independent pitching. What that basically means is it measures the 3 true outcomes: home runs, strikeouts, and walks, which are thought to be the things that a pitcher has full control over. It's not, you know, runs scored kind of depend on defense. It's just really kind of luck as terms of whether those hits are stacked in a row or not. So it's similar to ERA, but it really is kind of measuring something different. It's measuring what kind of pitcher control. And the Mets so far are outstanding at it.
In and off the plate, Heisey's had a nice career as a pinch hitter. He's got 43 career pinch hits, 14 career pinch hit homers. This isn't a crucial situation, obviously, but he's done it so many times. His 14 career pinch hit homers put him, you know, amongst the best all time. That's a lot of pinch hit home runs. He has jammed hard that time. That won't leave the yard. If you talk about Dave Hansen, you talk about John Vanderwall, Cliff Johnson, Matt Stairs, the all-time leader with 23, and Heisey's right there on that list.
It's the kind of move that a team that feels they're a postseason team makes.
Yeah, you can eat a roster spot with a guy like that. Daniel Murphy back in the first inning. Leaned on a breaking ball. This replay, StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services.
Yeah, 80 miles an hour pitch Look where that drops, right? At the end of that break of that pitch, it's at his waist. I don't think you could order up a more perfect curveball, and Murphy crushed that ball.
If Daniel Murphy asked you to throw him a pitch that you could hit over the wall, it would look a lot like
It would basically be that pitch.
And again, that gets back to that pitch is not the outfield defense's fault.
No, when it goes over the wall, there's not too much any hitter outfielder can do about it.
He's fooled. Did he do something again? Well, sliding catch made out there by Curtis Granderson. I was going to say he's really living right if he is fooled by that breaking ball and still dumped it in there. Doesn't mean that it's not a spectacular night. Curtis Granderson takes the jog in, and it's all Nationals. 9-1 is the score. 1-2-3 inning, and a welcome 1-2-3 inning in this one. Blevins with a clean one, 9-1, and so you think about these two teams and the Phillies, and you wait for the Phillies to, become the Phillies, and then you look at these two teams and you start to do a little comparing, and you compare, rotations, you compare offenses, you compare ability to make moves around July or August. And you can't help but think these are the two teams we'll be talking about all year long.
Yeah, this division is already a lot different than I think so certainly start. I think, the Phillies are obviously off to this really nice start. But, it's funny, we always talk about Pythagorean record versus their actual record. Right now, the Phillies are 7 games better than what their runs allowed. At this point.
Not on pace to be.
Not on pace to be. Right now, they are 7 games better. In the last 10 years in baseball, there's been only one team for the season that's been more than 7 games over. You can't do on pace for something that's luck, but they're on pace to win almost 30 more games, which is to say the Phillies are falling.
What that means is over what you would expect their record to be based on their runs scored and runs allowed, which as of the other day, and it might still be true, they were underwater. They allowed more runs than they'd scored, and look at them, they're half a game out of first place. Also, as of the other day, they had the second worst offense, not just in baseball, but in baseball history. That pitching staff is carrying them. They are 13-13 in games where they've scored fewer than 3 runs, which is insane. I love the Phillies. I'm so thrilled with what they're doing. They're so much fun to watch. They're more fun to watch this year when they're quote-unquote not trying to win than they've been in the last 5 years, but I guarantee you this is not going to hold up. This is going to be a very successful year that will not end with the playoffs.
I mean, to me, even in that division, I think this is still a Nationals and Mets division, but I think the Marlins are actually a better team than the Phillies are, and I think if anyone's going to make that jump up, and I don't think the Marlins will, but I think it's more the Marlins than it is the Phillies.
Well, let's bring Anthony DiComo into this conversation. He's at the ballpark T-Mobile, providing us with greater coverage, and all over the ballpark has been Anthony. Obviously, the Philadelphia Phillies a train ride away, and certainly a big part of this conversation. And I'm sure the players you're around and the fans that you talk about enjoy talking about the Phillies for whatever reason, because it's now May, and it's a couple of weeks into May. The Phillies are shocking what they've accomplished.
Yeah, we were in Philly pretty early in April, and I remember talking to some of the Phillies writers over there, showing the people who are around the team, and they're like, you know what, this team is probably better than people think. They're certainly better than the Braves right now, and only because they have some pieces that you can rightfully envision being on the next winning Phillies team. Now, that was about a month ago. Maybe this is the next winning Phillies team. The only thing, I agree with you guys that they're probably going to fall back down, maybe even in a pretty hard and rapid way. But look at what the Astros did last year. They were ahead of schedule, really. They looked up in July and said, you know what? We're going to go for it. We're going to add some pieces. We're in this position we didn't think we could be in. So you never can quite tell. You can never quite know what a team is going to do, what a front office is going to do when presented with unexpected opportunity. I'll give the Phillies that right now, but I do think the Marlins, if any one team in the NL East besides the Mets and the Nationals, will rise up. I've been told by multiple scouts in spring training, keep your eye on the Marlins, keep your eye on the Marlins. They were very overrated last year, and they're probably very underrated coming to this year. You're seeing some of those nice young pieces that they have really developed, whether it's Marcelo Ozuna, obviously having Jose Fernandez back. So that is definitely, I would say, more so than the Phillies, a team to realistically keep an eye on.
MLB Plus is presented by T-Mobile, and out at the ballpark roving. Our greater coverage is Anthony DiComo. Blake Trinan is on, by the way, out of the bullpen with 1 out and a 1-0 count on Eric Campbell.
Anthony, since the Braves' kind of dominance of this division ended, the division's been very scrambled. The different teams have stepped up. There's been different rivalries. There was the Mets-Phillies rivalry, and then the Nationals, and now it appears to be the Nationals and the Mets. When you look, the Braves are obviously reconstructing. The Phillies are to a lesser extent. The Marlins are at least kind of unpredictable. Do you still see these two teams as not only the best teams in the division this year, but they're going to be battling it out for the next couple of years as well? Or do you think one of those teams could step up and challenge them on a more long-term basis?
This year, yes. I think at the end of this season, the Mets and the Nationals will be 1 and 2 in some order in the NL East. But I don't necessarily think that's a given going forward. The Nationals have a nice young base that they're building up, but they still sort of bread their butter with these older players, with these veterans. You've already seen a couple of them leave. Certainly Jordan Zimmerman is gone. But, in the next couple of years, you're going to see them plow off some of these other players, whether it's Ryan Zimmerman or Jason Worth, guys who might not necessarily be as big, as important to the team as they were in recent years, but certainly still playing critical roles for the Nationals. And then on the Mets side, I think you're seeing right now how even having this staff of young starting pitching that you could have looked up at this time last year and said, wow, these guys are going to be around forever. The Mets are going to own this division for years and years and years. So that's already not the case. Already on paper, they're probably underdogs to win the division against this Nationals team that started out so well. And I think what you're seeing now from Matt Harvey, even Jacob deGrom, who's managing to pitch through some velocity issues, pitch through some of the issues that Matt Harvey has been unable to. You just never know when these injuries are going to happen. We might be looking at the beginning of the end of David Wright's career. No one around the Mets wants to say it or admit it, but I think certainly fans are worried about that. So just the notion, Yoenis Cespedes is up right now. He could opt out after this year. It might be a different team going forward. And I look around the division. I see what the Phillies are doing. They have these young, talented players already in place. I see what the Marlins are doing. They have a really nice-looking young lineup, and they're starting to get some of the pitching to go along with it. Again, this year, no. I think it's going to be the Mets and the Nationals. Next year, it would not surprise me to see one of those other teams rise up and win the division.
Hey, Anthony, it's Mike. I think you're right that the Mets are probably underdogs to the Nationals this year, but even so, this seems like probably their best chance given what we said about the other teams coming up, and Cespedes may opt out, and Wright maybe kind of nearing the end. So if that's the case, and if this is the year they really want to go for it, what's the one spot on the team you think they might really try to fill come trading deadline season?
I think they're going to have to look at third base, being honest with you. If David Wright is even marginally better than he's been right now, the Mets need a legitimate guy that they can plug in at third base, say, twice a week. And if something goes wrong with David Wright, that they can put in there on a full-time basis, that he's not just an Eric Campbell. No disrespect to Eric Campbell, but he's not that guy that you want playing for you, starting at third base every day down the stretch in a playoff run if David Wright's not available. The Mets really thought Wilmer Flores could be that guy, and maybe he still can, but he's going to have to show something really quickly for the Mets to have that confidence in him. They had a little bit of it in Juan Uribe last year, where they were using Uribe more as a piece to give some other guys some rest, make some other guys more versatile. But I think if the Mets could go out and find a third baseman, someone who's been an everyday player, ideally you'd have a left-handed hitter. That's probably realistic when you look at what's potentially out there and what's just out there around the league. There's not that many offensive-minded left-handed hitting third basemen. But just anyone who you could get, who you could plug in and be satisfied with what you're going to get at that position, both if David Wright's there and if he's not. I think that's going to be priority number one for the Mets.
Anthony, thank you. We appreciate it.
You got it, guys.
Anthony, brought to you by T-Mobile, providing greater coverage. And Anthony, our roving reporter at the ballpark tonight. Blake Treinen is on. Treinen, everything he throws is heavy, hard, and down. When he's right.
He's kind of an underrated guy, I think. He throws that sinker 70% of the time, and he throws it really, really hard. You can see right here, third hardest sinker velocity in baseball, second hardest among relievers. And those are some really impressive names, right? Syndergaard, Arrieta, and Familia, three really, really good pitchers. That's a list you want to be on.
Yeah, I want to spin off a little bit of what Anthony was talking about, the idea that if the Mets are going to make a move, it's going to be at third base. Like, remember, this is not David Wright in the last year of his contract, where they're like just trying to make it through this year before he can get going. He's signed till 2020. This is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem this year and years to come.
I think you're right. And real quick, I don't think he'll be a full third baseman. They're going to get somebody who can play third base, a guy who can play like corner infield, a bat who can cover third base, but not a full-time third baseman.
Yeah, we're talking about infielders. Certainly, the Nationals talking about infielders. Jim Duquette talking about Trey Turner.
You know, the interesting thing about Trey Turner, he's a tremendous defensive shortstop. He has plus range to his left and to his right. He comes in on balls well. He's got a plus arm. But the offense is what makes him a special player. He's a top of the lineup type of hitter. He's hitting over 300 in Syracuse and AAA this year. Last year he came on the scene and struggled a little bit. It's not unusual. And so you look at that, you look at his top end speed. He's a guy that has double digits in terms of stolen bases. I think at the major league level, he's a good 20 to 30 stolen base guy, if not more. That's a hard guy to keep in the minor leagues. They have a tough decision there with the Nationals. He made an impression again this spring in front of Dusty Baker. Dusty and Mike Rizzo decided to go with Danny Espinosa at shortstop, at least at the beginning. Now that Trey Turner's off to a good start, it's going to be very hard to keep him in the minor leagues much longer.
So we move into the final inning. Washington Nationals. And the conversation certainly about Trey Turner. We've been seeing him and been hearing about him for a long, long time. We peek in from the right field line. This great angle from T-Mobile, our greater coverage cam. We have enjoyed that tonight, keeping an eye on base runners. The bases especially active early in the contest, all the way into approach and stance in the batter's box. And we certainly enjoy our partnership with that angle provided by T-Mobile. We'll have our StatCast recap of this one as well. Some interesting things to discuss, whether it be routes in the outfield or aggressively trying to grab a base hit, breaking balls, command. And I'll put you two guys on the spot with what you brought up on the air at the end of the game.
I was hoping you'd forgotten about all that.
I wrote it down. It's called a post-game show. People want to hang around for a post-game show and some conversations there. But the one big thing that I think people will be talking about, and they're probably in our immediate news cycle world, is they're going to be talking a lot about Matt Harvey. I know you'll talk about it, and both you guys will when we're done with this, but there'll be a lot of conversation about him over the next 24 hours.
A lot. I can't wait to see, the back page of the Post tomorrow. The sports radio call, it's all going to be Matt Harvey, Matt Harvey, Matt Harvey. And we kind of talked about it. It's not all his fault, but it's a lot his fault. Something's not right, and I'm interested to see what they try to do to fix this. If as Anthony DeComo said, I didn't realize the next start for him would be in Washington. That's a big deal. If you send him out there, if he's like this, what are they going to do otherwise?
And it feels like if that start doesn't go well for him, this explodes even more.
Oh, yeah. He cannot have two back-to-back explosions against the Nationals.
Against the division rival that they're fighting for first.
Absolutely. Because you remember last year, one of the reasons that the Mets really were able to overcome the Nationals is because head-to-head, they whomped them. And if they're not going to be able to do that again this year, that's going to make it a whole lot harder to win this division.
Addison Reed is on the mound, the right-hander who really has made the most out of this change going back to last year. He has just worn that Mets uniform really well. And he was struggling in Arizona. He was struggling in the role of closer, pitching in the ninth inning. And Reed, since coming over, has been really good. I mean, in ERA, it's just a little bit over 1.
He has been really good, but he's a completely different pitcher now than he was with the White Sox and with Arizona.
Change? What was the change?
Well, he used to be an extreme fly ball pitcher, right? And he's now actually a ground ball pitcher. If you look at the last couple of years, in 2014, 30% ground balls, 48% fly balls. So far this year, 49% ground balls, 26% fly balls. And what he actually said the difference was for him, he got sent down to the minors last year, don't forget, before he came to the Mets. And he said to the New York Post, the difference is that he kind of went and changed his leg kick. He used to have this really big leg kick, and if you watch him pitching now, very minor leg kick. It's kind of changed for him, and he's turned this slider he's got into a really big ground ball pitch, and it's made him a totally different pitcher.
Like Steven Strasburg, he pitched at San Diego State University. Reed, 27 years old.
So he probably played for Tony Gwynn as well?
I would imagine at about that time. Strauss is what, 26, 25? No, Strauss is 27, so yes, absolutely. There's always been a good arm there. He grew up in Southern Cal, more in the Orange County area between Los Angeles and San Diego. And it's funny, a lot of pitchers are pitchers and they don't ever think about when they want to pitch in the game. He always has wanted to pitch later in a game. He loved Troy Percival when he was the closer for the Angels. He loved K-Rod when he came in and started taking over. He's always wanted this role. He's always wanted the high leverage, and This is good. I mean, for him, he may not be a ninth inning guy anymore, but getting important outs. He's going to get a lot of important outs this year.
It's not quite Houston Street-like, where he'll settle for pitching the eighth, but definitely wants to be a late guy.
How disappointed were you to see Eric Campbell in left field make that catch?
I know. We missed that. There will be an MLB Plus game where we get a pitcher. We get a
I mean, there will also be a game where there's a 2-hour rain delay and it goes 14 innings. We've paid for that in blood so far.
We have. He looks sharp. So we're going to end up with the Mets bullpen. Again, the unheralded Mets bullpen. If he can finish this out, that is 6 scoreless innings for the Mets bullpen. Pointless scoreless innings, but nevertheless 6 scoreless innings.
That's a very quick inning. And that's Reed throwing strikes and handling that situation very nicely. And that's also Washington being very aggressive.
Yes.
And
which is appreciated.
Swinging at a lot of them. So if you're just joining us, we're going to walk you through some of what went on in this game, and we'll do it through the eyes of StatCast. And we'll start with the Daniel Murphy home run. Murphy laying back and leaning on a breaking ball.
Yeah, it turns out this is going to be probably the most important play of the whole game. And we talked about this. Daniel Murphy's red hot. Daniel Murphy loves to pull the ball. And if you can get a launch angle between 25 and 30, it's going to be great almost no matter how hard you hit it, as long as it's a certain amount.
Steven Strasburg elevating a fastball, the extension there, the perceived velocity. And then a nice job here. This is the arm of Harper.
This is his fastest throw of the year, 95.3 miles an hour. No one was going to run on that.
Let's talk about running, by the way. Bryce Harper running.
Yeah, Bryce Harper, max speed of almost 20 miles an hour. Let's say 20 miles an hour. It's good. It's not great because the best guys do 21, 22, but certainly got the job done here. Not so much. Route efficiency of 87.4. That's really poor for a major league outfielder. We've seen Conforto have issues this year. That might have been the play that really killed Matt Harvey. Like I said, Harvey was not great tonight. That play, I think, just absolutely killed any chance he was going to have of getting out of this.
Poor outfield defense. Great watching Ben Revere run.
It was. This is when it all just got away from Harper. And again, they'll be talking all day tomorrow about Harper getting hit, but he got put in that situation.
Extension of 6'8".
Beautiful pitch. Look at that. Right on the inside corner on the black. There's just no chance there.
Espinosa over the shoulder. There's a distance cover. We were talking about that, a 94.4 route efficiency.
That's good.
Yeah, tell me. So an infielder goes almost 70 feet, and he does so at a 94.4.
Well, it shows that one team tonight had defense supporting their pitcher. That's what it shows. But yeah, that was a really great play by Espinosa. Almost a perfect route, and it really had to be to get there.
And so if you missed it early on, I think what backs up the interesting part of this type of a broadcast is both these guys were just looking at defense for the Mets outfield and concerned about Juan Lagares, simply put, watching and how it could come into play. You saw right there, folks, in those two replays how it changed the game.
Yeah.
And that's why, obviously it's not to criticize the outfielders. They're put in sometimes positions to fail, but what you guys saw changed the game.
We talked about this in the offseason. This is by design that the Mets outfield defense is like this because they thought they had pitchers. They do generally have pitchers who strike guys out. But I think what you're going to have to see from them now is when they have someone like Harvey who's striking out fewer guys or Colon pitching, they may have to sacrifice some offense and get Lagares out there because the outfield defense is becoming more and more of a problem all the time.
And you can't really sit Cespedes because he's been really great with the bat. So that probably means that Conforto has to sit. But I think you can make the argument Granderson's not really hitting well.
Bingo.
I think you could easily say, well, I know that Cespedes hasn't really played much right field. So I don't really know how you work that out. Lagares in right field seems an inefficient use of the skills. But if you can get away where you have Lagares in center, one of the other guys in right, Granderson on the bench, that's probably the most optimal situation right now, because even if one of them is uncomfortable in right field, it's not like Granderson's that great of a right fielder himself.
But are we at the point where the veteran gets sat down?
Well, I don't mean benched, but I just mean like more of a rotation, Because right now it is Lagares on the bench. And poor De Aza, he signed there before.
I know. He thought he was going to get a spot.
He was going to be a platoon in center field with Lagares, and then Cespedes drops into their lap again.
Our T-Mobile greater coverage cam finding Dusty Baker inside of the dugout. We love that camera all night long. Jonathan Papelbon last pitched on May 14th. It's May 19th, so Jonathan Papelbon getting in a little bit of work. His last 3 outings, he has been unscored upon. The right-hander and the closer for the Nationals.
This is my favorite thing in the world, where sometimes you don't want to have the closer in if it's not a safe situation, and then he hasn't pitched in long enough, and you have to stick him in a 9-1 game.
And not enough fans left to really boo him. Like, it's a little, he must feel neglected.
What are we seeing with regard to velocity over the last half-decade with this pitcher?
It's been continually declining, and this was a big story for a while. When he first got to Philadelphia, the first couple of years, the velocity would go down and down and down, but he actually had always made it work. Despite the decline in velocity, he'd been pretty successful, and I think when he first got there, 95 miles an hour with the Red Sox, kind of dropped down a little bit to 91, and it's been fine. But you look at the strikeout percentage, right? It's gone down, it's gone down, it's gone down. And this year, it's his lowest. It's literally half of what it was 5 years ago. And you look at the ERA, it was always in the 2s. This year, it's 3.45. Fastball specifically, 12% whiffs the last couple of years, 6% this year. So he's still being okay, but you can see as the velocity dips and dips and dips, you wonder how effective he's going to be.
And also, it's a different game now in the way that relievers are deployed. 91 is not going to get it done. There are people on the Nationals that throw harder than that. There are people all throughout baseball that are going to throw harder than that. I know he's the closer, and he's Jonathan Palboni's one of, whatever your thoughts about him, one of the best closers of all time. But after a while, how long do you keep him in there just because of the role?
He's getting tricky, unique. Secondary pitch, obviously a big one. Changing the arm angle. We saw that a minute ago. He's maybe just cheating to get more arm angle and get more movement. You can see a lower arm angle there. Just dive on the fastball, give him more tilt on it as he strikes out Neil Walker. 1-1 the count to Asdrubal Cabrera. Singled in a run back in the second.
It seems strange, though. I mean, Papelbon is really going to be pitching like Francisco Rodriguez in the next couple of years. Like not early Francisco Rodriguez, but late Francisco Rodriguez. I mean, he is becoming this guy that we thought of, this flamethrower, this fiery flamethrower. He's crafty now, and he has to be.
Yeah, and you can see here, I guess that probably was a changeup, right? 88 miles an hour. That's fine, but if that is only going to have a couple miles separation,
right, there's not that much contrast.
Fastball, then that's a problem.
Yeah, if the changeup may be the same speed as it used to be, but the fastball is not the same speed, and that lack of contrast is the problem.
Yeah, each changeup's a split, right? Is this changeup
I believe,
a split?
yeah, I believe it's
maybe just a little bit harder. By the way, that replay powered by Amazon Web Services. That StatCast replay.
He's still making it work, though. He hasn't really been rocked that hard, but you can see it coming.
A walk to Asdrubal Cabrera. Boston's 4th round pick in 2003, Jonathan Papelbon out of Mississippi State. Kevin Plawecki is 0 for 3. He's flied to right. He has struck out, and he has grounded out. 1 for 9 now in this series. He can wait around.
Looks like he's ready to go home.
Taylor puts that one away in left field.
What will be the exit velocity of some of the fans and players to get off the field after this game? It's been a long
You'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't, at how often that joke gets made. Usually whenever a manager gets fired.
Yeah.
What is his exit velocity out of the clubhouse?
I love when he hits, that's great, but I really love him with the glove on as he gets ready to hit, maybe the final out in this game.
What's interesting about Lagares is we haven't really had a chance to, obviously he hasn't really played the outfield, we haven't had a chance to see him throw, and his arm is really a lot better this year than it was last year. Remember, he had the whole thing with his elbow, because the year before he was throwing lasers from the outfield. We look at competitive throws, we just take the top 10% of the guys' throws to get away from the lobs. Last year, he was 146th out of 178. This year, he's 15th out of 107. He's increased that throwing velocity by almost 10 miles an hour, which really goes to show that elbow seems like it's feeling pretty good.
There aren't many better outfielders all around with regard to preventing offense and changing games. There's defensive runs saved since 2013, and that's the who's who defensively, right, guys?
Yeah, and that's even with Lagares had somewhat of a down season last year, and he's still on that list. That really shows you a lot about what kind of outfielder he can be. And he's never going to be a star hitter, but that's not why he's here. If he can even be just like a competent average or slightly below hitter with that defense, it's a valuable player.
And that's also with less playing time than everybody else on that list.
Because you're right, and that is a counting stat. It's not a rate stat, so you can't accumulate those if you're not on the field.
Runner moved up just a moment ago. In scoring position, bottom falls out of that pitch, and that's a good one.
Lagares too, they knew he was a good defensive player, but I think they were almost a little surprised at just how good he was when he got to the major leagues. I think and I think now that's something you're able to quantify a lot more in a way than you weren't 5-10 years ago. And you can see more in major league ballparks now because of technology you can't see in the minor league.
Oh, crossfire there. There's those different arm angles for Papelbon, kind of making it up as he goes along.
I don't know if they still have what they called back in the day the kangaroo court in the clubhouse, right? Where it's basically the players in their own sort of legal system. I think if you walk him right here in a 9-1 game and you don't throw the strike, he's going to get fined.
I feel like they must hate having to find Papelbon. It's probably not an easy process.
Threw him a fastball, and he ended the ball game. He basically challenged him right down the middle. So 9-1, the Nationals roll, and they are victorious in this one. And for Washington, just a big, big night. Obviously, a big night against Matt Harvey. Steven Strasburg was spectacular. And, you know, so we talk about the struggles of Harvey. Let's talk about the high side with Strasburg tonight.
Really only had one inning where he didn't look dominant, and that was the second. He got out of that just fine. He still threw a lot of pitches, and, you know, he wasn't necessarily efficient, but he got his 6 innings, which I think he's done 14 consecutive starts now, and he did what they needed to done.
Yeah, you're right. He wasn't necessarily the most efficient I think we've ever seen him, but he struck out, you know, double digits. Only Clayton Kershaw has done that more often this year. That says a lot about how dominating he can be. And, you know, in a game where it was kind of billed as Strasburg, Harvey, I think we know which one of them came out ahead.